everybody, it's me, Sugar, and I'm here with my husband, Jeff.
Hello.
And we're going to get into our top 10 of the year. Yay! So just a forewarning, we've done this a couple years now. We will talk about honorable mentions, then we'll get into our list. And if for some reason you don't hear a certain anime on the list, maybe we didn't watch it, didn't like it, didn't make the cut, you name it. If you want, you can leave a comment down below and asking, and I can answer that question. Otherwise, let's roll into it. So we're not going to keep you in suspense. Let's get right into honorable mentions and get the hate out early.
Well, yeah, considering we have a 9.07 in our honorable mentions, it'll be fun.
Oh, yes. So let's talk about the first honorable mention, which is Attack on Titan. I know I've had a lot of love-hate for Attack on Titan. It did really good the last season, but I still feel like it was dragging a bit in certain parts, or it was kind of, it's like its last hurrah. It kind of had to do well, but at the same token, there were still things I had issues with. Of course, Jeff didn't watch it. As far as I can remember, the animation was pretty spot on for last season. Just kind of the fact of having, can I say, certain choices. I don't want to say anything because it'll still be, I guess it's no longer spoiler free, but because we're going to be getting into the meat of some of these. Yeah. But I still don't want to spoil like Attack on Titan. There's one season left, but since it's an honorable mentions, I won't get into it. Long story short, there's certain things I wish they would have like ironed out a little bit more.
It's hard to go from an anime where Sugar definitely, like, in the first... Well, okay, I'll just say the second season for Sugar was really bad.
Really bad.
And coming off of that and still having to kind of deliver on things that the second season brought in, as good as elements of it were, it still had to harken back to some of these, I guess I can't call them mistakes, but some of the decisions that were made that you were not a fan of, and thus it kind of drags.
Well, that's the thing. I can't forget that some of the other seasons, some of the inactions, some of the things still linger to this season. So I can't ignore all that's happened. Yes, we're looking at it as the season itself. I just found myself still saying from time to time, come on. Like, I still found myself saying it. So if I still found myself saying it, it wasn't as good as the other 10 that we're talking about. That's why it's an honorable mention. We did talk about it legitimately, and I broke down all the things about it, about what it did right, what it did wrong. And, you know, like, for the majority, it held its own. I don't feel like it warranted the 9 that it was given. I personally gave it a 7. Wave of hate coming, I get it. But it's still... How can I say this? Think of it as grades. As you know, we're both teachers, so think of it as grades. Somebody who's been mostly failing, I know some of you don't agree with that, mostly failing and starts upping their grades. After a while, it becomes average. It doesn't become perfect, it becomes average. So I still have to take into account some of the things that happened. Yes, I'm looking at the season itself, but even though it was the last hurrah, of course it's going to be better in that sense because a lot of big shit is finally paying off. And I think a lot of people get that kind of bias where, oh, shit happened and it looked awesome, therefore it was awesome. It's like you have to look at the entire season, like not just the parts that were like, oh, fuck yeah. But, you know, like there's just the in-betweens of the fuck yeah were still some issues.
And I mean, everything is, like, Sugar is very objective, but the thing at the end of the day as well is that some story beats, some narrative threads will just not hit as hard with some people as it will with others.
Right.
And that's the thing, like, when you're looking at, you can give 5 different animes all, let's say, you know, a 7 or an 8, but you're still going to have, you know, your, what you would consider as, like, your high 8s versus your low 8s. And you can't give half marks on.
Right, and that's the thing, like, yeah, finally we got some of our payoff. Some of our answers were had. Some of the things we were looking for were had. All of these things were explained, which honestly should have been done earlier, but that's just a pet peeve of mine. And I feel like they laid it all out basically now so that the final season has something to kind of wing at. Whereas before we're kind of like, every season's like, let's milk this for all we can. And then it came here and it's like, fuck, we only have one season left. Splay out everything. And everyone's like, oh, fuck, that's awesome, because we got everything we wanted. It's like, because it had no choice. Like, but it's what it did was good, minus the are you serious moments, or it's like, come on, like, still moments I had, so, yes.
Hey, it made honorable mention for the first time.
It made honorable mention for the first time ever. Like, I think that's a big deal. So, again, it was considered, which means it did well for its season. It just didn't do well enough compared to some of the other stuff we're going to talk about. Next honorable mention, Carol and Tuesday. This one did really well musically. I feel like its biggest issue was kind of not really deciding what it wanted to be in the sense of story. It kind of became like an idol show. Then it was more of like the kind of cautionary tale of what happens when you become an idol, into like things about like poverty, and then it went into like celebrity, and then it went into all these different things.
It looked at a lot of different facets of celebrity and like, you know, becoming and maintaining, you know, musical stardom.
Yeah.
Which in some points, in many points, obviously if we're talking about it now, in many points it was excellent, but also like you said, it meandered a little bit, and it tried to focus on too many things at once.
Yeah.
I think that we loved the first half of it, where it was all about them coming into that stardom. But then, like you said, we followed some other characters who got into issues with drugs and whatnot. And then we went into another area where there was some politics involved, and there was an analog, essentially, for Donald Trump. And they went in a lot of different avenues.
Yeah.
And we're not saying that... I felt like they meshed them pretty well together.
Yeah, but to be a better score, it has to have focus. Mm-hmm. Like, just to be like, okay, these are the stories of the girls, and then what happens, instead of like, life happens, like it's a total mirror of our own life. Yeah. And it's like, I get it. I like when people point out and be like, oh, that's clever, instead of like pointing and then grabbing a magnifying glass. We're like, no, don't linger here. Let's go. Let's go.
It was... And like I said, it's an honorable mention.
Yes.
It was very good. And
the music
we
was great.
It about potentially making the top 10. And if it wasn't for a couple of strong contenders popping in here at the end of the year, it would have been in our top 10. But
you know, it's happened. Yeah.
I would still recommend watching it. Like
it's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. It has its dub is completed now, and that's up for people who are... You know, they just want to watch the dub. Obviously, you can watch the sub as well on Netflix. The music is great. A lot of the secondary characters they bring in are awesome. It's memorable. It's just objectively, when we were talking about it, there were certain sections where both of us were like, I kind of wish they didn't go that direction.
Yeah.
And so, when you have to go between, again, like your 8.5s to your 8.75s, that's the difference sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So animation was good, music was good. It just kind of meandered a bit.
Carol and Tuesday are amazing characters. You'd fall in love with them.
Oh yeah, there's somebody you could easily see being friends with. The songs are super fucking catchy. I still sing them to this day and have them on in our house. But it's just the lack of focus. I feel like it could have had a really poignant message when it kind of just misted the air with what it wanted to say. Mm-hmm. Especially like the political part. I thought it was going to be a very poignant point that it was going to get across, where it's like, that's just how it is. And I'm like, I get it. I do. But then what's the point if you're just pointing out that it's there?
Yeah.
Again, just our own opinion.
And yeah, I think we both gave it like an 8. So it's very good. It's just, when you're talking about the best of the year, sometimes very good won't make it in the top 10.
Yeah. Next honorable mention we have is Fruits Basket. Of course, you guys know that I'm a huge fan of Fruits Basket, so I let Jeff do most of the influence on this being honorable mention because I didn't want my own bias being in there. We both agreed, though, trying to look at it objectively. The animation was very good. The music was good. Personally, having watched the original, very happy with it adapting and trying to make amends with the mistakes it did in the first one, and then improving on itself a bit. Jeff being a new watcher, though.
The only thing I can say, and the reason why it's an honorable mention as opposed to higher, is it feels dated because it is. And the thing is, we have an entry later on that is from material that's very old.
Oh, yes.
But it felt new. It felt current. And Fruits Basket, while it is trying so hard to basically be a near identical manga representation, which is what you needed to do in order to bring this back in the first place. That also negates the ability to look at 15 years of storytelling within the genre. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not to say, I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. Somebody needs to be met by Truck-kun repeatedly, and I will be very excited if that happens in the second season. But that's also something to me where Sugar and I will talk about how sometimes there's a character in fiction where you are meant to hate them, but you hate them so much it kind of brings down your overall feelings for it.
And it's funny because Jeff has this feeling where I have it a lot and it's hard for me to get past it, where Jeff is really trying with Fruits Basket. Yeah,
because I hate her and I want nothing but terrible, horrible things to happen to her. With Sugar, the thing that a show that I really like, not anime related, is King of the Hill. And Sugar cannot get past how legitimately horrible in most ways Peggy is.
Yeah.
To the point where I laugh about it and I'm like, yes, she's supposed to be annoying. She's supposed to be kind of grating. She almost never gets her comeuppance. That's part of the joke. And Sugar is like, I hate that so much, I can't watch the show.
Yeah, I've watched the entirety of King of the Hill, but it's gotten to the point where now it's like, I hate watching reruns just because I hate her so much.
Yeah.
But
and I hate a certain character in Fruits Basket so much that I have a distinct feeling that she won't die, and that's what I inevitably want. I want somebody to kick her through a window, and then when she hits the ground, a truck runs her over.
And those of you who are fans, I'm sure you can guess who he means.
Everybody else would just be goddamn happy if she died. That's what I want to have happen. I want everybody just to be happy. I want people to be happy, and she's not letting it happen. And obviously I'm emotionally into the story, which is why it's an honorable mention.
So, those are our honorable mentions. We could have added a couple more, but we really wanted to fine-tune it. Let's get down to our countdown. So number 10, I'm sure some of you might be surprised that I'm saying, but it's Dr. Stone. So I said many podcasts several times where I was like, I don't know anything about it, we're going to it blind. Then once I started watching it, I was like, why do people like it? It's so boring. But it's one of the few instances I can say but. The beginning was very slow, it was very gradual, it really kind of took its time. But once it did, the science, and again, this might be because we're teachers, it might also sway to us that way, but the fact that the science in it is so interesting, and it's so educational, and it's fun, and the fact of the matter is, all the characters are insanely likable, even the ones who aren't supposed to be likable. Gen is probably my favorite, and the song, Jeff knows, I play on fucking loop about him singing, and it's so funny. The show itself is really slow starting, and it's very clear cut what's happening in the beginning, to the point where it's kind of why? It seems very obvious where this is going to go, but at the same token, it wasn't obvious once it got rolling exactly how we'd go about it, in the sense of science, where it's many steps to get to the final objective. And there's several times, of course, we're going to get into spoilers now, for all of them, because we're explaining it. Yes. The fact of science, of getting from one point A to B to C, that you have to get those fundamentals, of making a battery, using that battery to run this machine, have that machine to run something else, and kind of we find that there's another society there that isn't as advanced as what was originally there, and trying to teach them and believe in science, which is, initially a religion, which is really funny, because it's believe in religion, and of course people are oh, it's magic. It's not magic, it works. And it's really good that way.
And Senku is a great character for that, where he's I could see, you could have written his character to just be, flummoxed, and to be what are you talking about, magic? It's just science also. But no, he is so elated at the fact that science has this effect on people, where he's happy that they're this is magic, this is crazy, because he's this, every step that we're taking here, this is bonkers. Yeah. This is crazy. This is basically magic. And he's so fun and carefree about it all. Yeah. And that sort of feeling permeates through you as well as you're watching. You're just
Yeah.
you are on that ride with Senku the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all the characters are just so lovely with him. Like, you might be like, oh, he just loves science and that's all he is. There's more to him, and there's more to, like, when we uncover about his dad, which is really, like, tearjerker. We get to hear about his dad, and then we, like, just their interaction with, like, the girls. It's so funny, and and just, like, their characteristics, because, like, just the whole concept, which is, I think, is an unbelievable thing to, like, explore and think of in that way, is glasses. How people went about life without glasses and how they consider it. It's not like blindness or loss of vision. It's the fuzzy disease. Yeah. It's that you can't see clearly. And, you know, it's just so interesting in how they go about trying to get, like, eyesight, like, with glasses. And just that idea itself. Because it's not like, oh, suddenly one day we became, like, blind and we needed glasses and it just worked out. It's been around forever. We just didn't know what was wrong with us.
We didn't know how bad our vision was until it was like, oh my God.
Or it's like, oh, grab this. It's like, what? Like, what am I grabbing? What does it look like? What color is it? Like, and that's just an interesting notion in and of itself of, like, why somebody can't grab something or, like, hit something dead on.
And I guess with all of our praise, there might be some people who are listening for the first time who are wondering, well, most of the community seems very elated with it. You seem very elated with it. Why is it only number 10? And there's a couple of... There's one huge glaring problem that I have with the entire series, which is that, as scientific as it all is, our current villain was strong enough to punch a lion or whatever through a tree.
That's something I truly hate about our main villain. It's like, you can have somebody that's strong and show that, but without, like, killing a lion, sorry. Like,
I don't know if he killed it, but he punched it hard enough to launch it into a tree.
He killed it. He's wearing its pelt. Yeah, he skinned it and wore it as clothing.
And then the super annoying thing later is you see within his army, he has other people who are part of his army, but they're, like, really good with swords or with spears.
Yeah, it's like, how do you know?
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, you could have had this guy be like, oh, I'm a really strong martial artist.
Yeah.
And that would have made sense in the scientific world instead of having a JoJo moment where he punches a lion into a tree and then skins him and wears it.
Yeah. I was like, Jesus Christ.
That doesn't make sense.
Where I like that when he like, that's the other part I find kind of, like, I was like, oh, when I saw them, I just knew. I was like, there's no way you knew that he was, like, a fucking sword master from being in stone. I was like, whatever. Like, partial belief here.
And then the other issue...
But, like, the one is, like... Oh, sorry, I was just about to say, because, like, the people that he recruits, which I like, are, like, gymnastics, like, harpoon, like, all these other people that are, like, unique. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
The other issue that I have is we spend, like you said at the beginning, we spend, like, 5 or 6 episodes with these characters that I end up really love it. Like, they're Senku's best friends... And then they're just gone. They're gone like, for 20 episodes.
Like, well, we'll see you later. And I was like, well, I like
it. Yeah, and they don't... And maybe they're saving this for the second season, but they don't cut over to them. They don't
see how they're doing.
Yeah, and even, like, Gen, he comes around and he doesn't really have anything to report. He's just like, oh yeah, they're still around. They're doing what they need to do. Yeah. And... Yes, maybe they're going to show that in the second season. Maybe that's going to be, like, the first couple of episodes are going to be them... you know, communicating what's been happening and whatnot. But you made me really enjoy these characters. Yeah. And then they're like, okay, bye!
It's like, oh, she's cute. It's like, you'll never see her again. I was like, nah!
Yes.
But obviously we do see them. It's just the most of the season they're gone. Yeah. It's like,
And obviously they've done something right to make us care so much about characters that if we don't see them for, 20 episodes, we're like, that's a problem. I need to see more of them. But, again, when you're talking about percentages of points when you're rating something, that brings it down the list a little bit.
Yeah, like, as you can see, we're being really nitpicky here. Like, animation-wise, good. Music, good. Story, mostly good. Minus the whole punching a lion. The fact of, like... what happened to his dad, what happened beforehand, what happened when he woke up, like, all that stuff makes sense. It's not like, what the fuck? Like, no, it makes sense, and it's just enjoyable, especially on, like, a science thing, especially, I don't know if you've ever had this feeling, but bear with me. but like when you have a food that you really enjoy for the first time, or you discover something, that moment you see in the characters where it's just like, the one is like, I would just like a soda again, and he makes it, and it's just this utter bliss of having this simple item. And it's such a good feeling for the viewer. I don't know if that's for everybody, but I get that as a teacher as well, when you like show somebody something and they discover it for the first time and you're like, right? Like, yep. It's such a good feeling.
I think everybody who's listening to the podcast, it's that same feeling when you know, if you recommend something to someone and then they end up just loving it. And it's that feeling. You're just like, oh, that means the world.
And it's so funny because I brought this up thinking of a feeling like it. And yet there's a moment in the series where it's like, dude, I want you to try something my son and I made. He's like, tell me it's not the fucking best. And then after, like, later on in the series, it's like, it was the best. And I was like, yes! I was just like, yes.
Yeah, but it's very good. I'm very excited to see where it will go in the future. There's just other anime this year that impressed us more, that we felt were better in that.
'Tis to 9 others. So let's move on to number 9. So number 9 is Radiant Season 2.
Yeah!
And I know Jeff is surprised. Maybe you'll be surprised, because Jeff initially for the first season was just digging his feet in. Yes.
Let's be fair here. It was like the first 10 episodes where I was like,
that's a good amount of digging feet in.
The whole time I was like, I can see where this can go, and I'm mad it's not there.
And then by the end it totally landed, and I was like, dude, that was so fucking sad.
Yes.
And then season 2 came with full force again. Well, I shouldn't say again, strong as the first season ended. Animation's been pretty on point. Music's been really good. New characters have been insanely enjoyable, especially Okaho. New animal characters, which is really great. All of them are used very wisely. It's been super enjoyable. And like the moments, we're getting a deeper connection with our characters now. We see a lot of great moments for, oh my gosh, my brain's just like spaced out there. Melee. And we see some more of like her true feelings, and we get to see more of our main character's feelings, and then we get to see like other things that are happening with like our baddies and other things that are in motion, and it's just so good.
Yeah, the thing that they've done just expertly in the second season has been like legitimate world building without it feeling like here's a lore dump.
Yeah.
They've done an entire season where it's in a new area of the planet. They've got an entirely different thing that's happening, and we get to experience it in a way that is genuine, that actually means something, as opposed to a lot of other anime. The lesser anime will just like, we're now going into this area, and then they'll spend 5 minutes explaining, like, this is the history of this area, this is what this area is all about, here's how it's different from places that we've seen before.
And it's totally
and none of that
in.
happens.
Yeah.
It just kind of, it reminds me a lot in video games of Final Fantasy X, where you as an analog for the main character have no idea what's happening in this world, essentially, this country, whatever you want to call it. And you are learning everything as it is happening to them, as opposed to them explaining it in a lore dump in episode 1.
Right.
Like, this is how everybody feels, this is how this area works, this is their political system, and so by the time you've been told all this, you're like, oh, okay, I already see what's going to be happening. Like, I already have a good idea of how this is going to develop. And whereas here, no, he's like, I need to go to this area. They're going to have some information on Radiant, or at least I hope so. I'll figure it all out as I go.
And the second he gets there, the poor kid, Seth, gets fucked over. He just gets, like, just fucking,
And the
poor kid.
And, like, other characters, secondary characters, like you said, Melee gets a lot of growth this season. We get to meet Okaho, and we get to kind of see her story and a lot of other people.
Cute.
But then, even a character like Grimm, we have
Grimm.
Like a 5 or 6 minute little tease of like, whoa, wait, what's happening?
Yes.
And then it just kind of cuts away, and they're like, that's Grimm. That's Grimm.
Yeah.
You're going to learn weird things about Grimm. If that pops up in the story and it's relevant, they will show us. Otherwise, we're just left kind of like, wait,
What the fuck?
What just happened? And that is great storytelling.
Yeah.
Show, don't tell.
Yeah.
And Radiant has been excellent with that.
Yeah.
It has... It's nice in the sense that I said with the first season, there's a lot of connections with something like X-Men within this world, if you've never watched Radiant. And so now, like, going into an area where, imagine an X-Men, an entire country where it's okay. It's okay if you're a mutant, you know? And it isn't like... It isn't like... there are other people who are still, you know, trying to come in and cause some issues and make that all work to their advantage. But this huge thing, which was like, oh, all sorcerers are terrible and we need to get rid of them. Now they're in a country where they're like, oh, they just don't talk about it. Like, it's, you know, whatever your issue is, that's your issue, and that's fine. And it's so interesting to see the reaction from our characters because they've never been there before, and they're like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful, but then there's other crap that's going on that isn't wonderful, and they're getting pulled in, and so many, expanding the world of magic. It isn't just like, oh, you've got sorcerers who can do some magic. Now there's like, sort of like other planes of existence, and there's magic that has to do with nature and like of the mind and things like that.
That you can destroy and create.
Yeah.
That's all part of magic.
And, it has been an expertly well done show, don't tell story so far. I've written a script about why I think more people should be watching Radiant. It looks like it's starting to gain a little bit of groundswell. More people are aware of it, but it feels also like criminally underwatched. So.
And the thing I really like, there's two moments I really like stand out in this season for me. First is like Seth's flashback, and we learn more about how he truly feels about like all the people he's come in contact with, and his moment with Alma almost made me cry, and I was just like, oh my god, that's so cute. But then the other moment I really like, and that it focused on, and again, I haven't read the manga, I've just kind of skimmed it, but if it does it in there as well, it's good, because something I really truly hate is like from a young age, reading books and so forth, I've been a big fan of like, you know, King Arthur and Lancelot and Merlin, and Merlin's used in here as part of like lore, as it being a person with magic and so forth. And there's a person, Mir, who's been around for a long time, and everyone's like, oh, that's not what Merlin would believe. He's like, fuck, I knew Merlin. He didn't believe in any of the shit you're spewing. Like, I love that so much, where it's like, he's not at all like you're describing him. He was like this, like, and I love that, because everyone's like bastardized Merlin, like, as like a character in all things. And it's like, yeah, I know it's fiction, but hey, it's become this thing where people have taken a lot of liberties with it, where it's just like, I love that it's kind of like, yeah, you guys all think this about him, but that's not really what he was.
Yeah.
And I love that, because it kind of just points a finger at it.
And it also brings into account something which I really like, which is that the history that they're telling us right now, that they are living in and whatnot, it can be wrong, and not just like in like a, oh, the people you thought who were good were bad. No, it also... lots of people get canonized as these great figures of power. And
history, yeah.
And historically speaking, it's like, well, yeah, they did some great things. But,
I love that where it's like, he's a legend. It's like, he was okay. Like,
you guys have made him a legend.
Yeah.
You have created a narrative around this person to give you hope, give you faith, whatever it is that you want to say, but... you weren't around. You have no idea.
And, like, I love Mir in the sense, like, his personality. His design at first kind of, like, shook me a little bit, but we understood why later.
Yeah, it's explained why.
It's explained
he's
why.
Of a weird-looking dude.
But I love that moment in, like, the most recent episode where Okaho is, like, in front of the statue praying. He's like, why are you praying to a rock? She's like, no, I'm praying to, like, Merlin. That's, like, what you do. He's like, but it's a rock.
Yeah, and then the greatest thing that he said afterwards, where he's like, Merlin wouldn't have prayed to a rock.
Yeah, he's like, what would Merlin do? He's like, not prayed to a rock.
Go out and do something. That was one thing Merlin did do. Did a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it's like, not pray to a rock.
Oh, it is so good, and
so enjoyable.
it is, that's it. It's one of the best the best anime one of the best anime this year.
And all the characters are so interesting and likable. Even the ones like Jeff was saying we haven't even gotten to. Like Dart is still probably one of my favorite characters.
Oh yeah.
Like period. And it's like so interesting because you see the gears moving in his head of how he really thinks versus what he's doing. And you always see there's something else of like, how can I make this the best situation? I don't want to hurt people. I want to help people, but I also have to do this. And
again, it's a lot of show don't tell because another character asks him like,
it's like, what are you thinking?
What are you doing? And he just is like,
and then it cuts, or else he talks about something else where it's like, what do you mean by this? And it's just like, oh shit, like.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck.
For those who haven't checked out Radiant yet, it is a shonen that it takes, I would say, probably about 10 to 11 episodes to really get going.
The first season was a little slow to get going, but now that it's found its footing,
I think it belongs. Is it a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood?
No.
No. Is it, is it going to be considered one of the top 10 shonen even of this decade?
Probably not.
Maybe not.
No.
But is it in that A-B+ tier? I think I've said it before, where I think Fairy Tail was very good. I don't think that it was excellent. It was very good. And Radiant right now, I would say, is maybe even a little better.
Yeah.
And
if it keeps going the way it's going, definitely.
Where if you consider Fairy Tail like we did, to maybe like a B+, this would be like an A-.
Yeah, and I'd say with Fairy Tail, I'd find it more like enjoyable adventure where like, yeah, these are my friends, we're going on an adventure, where this is, yeah, we're going on adventures, but it can get serious. Like it gets, not to say Fairy Tail didn't get serious, but most of it was very lighthearted most of the time. There was the heavy moments, obviously, with like Juvia and other things. But like here, like even the second season, we hit like hard. That's why I say we learn a little more about Melly, about like her conversation with Seth at the hotel was like deep.
Yes.
And it was like very much a well done shot where like I don't remember there being any music. Very like Naruto moment of this is serious. Fucking pay attention sort of thing.
Yeah, and they spent like half an episode just in conversation about like what our lives have been like and what, again, like your actions, the decisions that you have made, what that tells me about what you think of me, what you think of everything that's happening, and how that affects me.
Yeah.
And it was, again, very well done. The only thing I can point to as a reason why maybe it's not doing as well as I believe it should is that it is a French origin, so maybe some people just, if they're like, oh, I want to read some manga, they think that, well, it has to be from Japan, whereas this is French, and so
I know a lot of people who have read the manga, but I don't know how many there actually are out there that have read the manga.
That's within our friend group. Nobody, like, we'd never heard of it until
only one of our
season.
friends. I asked him I think the last time, and he was like, yeah, I started reading it, then I just forgot about it. Because I don't think, like, the issues were coming out fast enough. For his speed.
Is this the friend who
begins with a J
and has read is currently reading like 200 different manga?
Yes.
Okay, I can understand why.
He's like the me of manga. Has like a ton of things going on at once and just keeps going. But anyways,
watch it.
Yes, definitely. The first season might throw you a little bit because, like I said, it has to find its footing, and then like the animation kind of levels out where there's no real issues I can think of animation-wise with the second season. Everything's pretty smooth. Everything like character-wise, joke-wise, everything nailed. The first season kind of was dicey, but the end, especially Confrontation in Rumbletown, totally worth it. Anyways, let's move on. Next, number 8 is Vinland Saga, and I know some of you are probably surprised because I gave it so much shit, and it's not the fact that it was, okay, there's a couple of CG moments in the beginning that were bad, but but it wasn't that it was bad, it was just the fact that I was so angry that everyone was like, oh my god, it's the next Jesus, it's the next Berserk. I'm like, calm the fuck down, like, it's good, but Jesus Christ, calm the fuck down. So, Vinland Saga. Overall, animation was pretty consistent. I feel like the best characters were Thorkel, or Torkel, however you'd like to say it, and Askeladd, or Ashlad. All of you have told me different ways you like to say it. I'm going to from now on say Askeladd and Torkel. just for reference, so don't get angry. Those are the two best characters in my opinion. Anything that happens around them, fighting, talking, anything, great.
They are like the kind of, they're an antithesis of one another, but both are also like very valid warriors in this world.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah. I love their dynamic. I love their ideologies. I love, like, we had one whole episode with just Askeladd having, like, his, like, monologue moment of being like, this is me. Why the fuck can't you be as awesome as me? His whole talk, and we kind of, like, we learned a lot about him up until that point, but very much his sit-down moment of being like, this is who I was, this is my past, this is what I had to overcome, what's your problem? Like,
yeah.
Like, I am normal. Like, I'm a Viking. Why are you having troubles with this sort of deal? So a lot of that relationship was good. The beginning, I feel like, once Tor was killed, shocker. If you don't know, sorry. We're talking spoilers here, talking top 10 here. When, Tor was killed, or Tor's, whatever.
Yeah,
when he was killed, it felt like shit because I hated his son. I still do. But that's just sort of like, again, a character you're meant to hate, which I really hate. And it kind of like bugs me about it. But otherwise, once he died, I was like, fuck, now we have to pay attention to his child. So I was like, he's going to be such a whiny little shit. I can already feel it. And he's going to be like miserable the whole show. And of course he was. I do like that he had some moments of like, seeming clarity, but obviously it was a ruse where it's like he didn't really learn anything, which is too bad.
I don't know if I would go that far.
Well, in the sense of like his dad's message, I feel like he never learned anything. And then when he had his moment with, oh my god, I can't remember his name in the end. He found him after so many years.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. Sorry. At the end when they're at the boat and they have that nice scene and you see the part with the seagull and you're like, oh, maybe he does think that this is the best thing, and then he vanishes and it's like, no, of course not. Why would he think this would be better for him?
I think you're being maybe a little harsh, and I think that he is a complex character.
I wouldn't call him a complex character though, because like, yeah, he is okay. So, ugh. So I'm not going to deny he's not a complex character, but in a complex character in the sense that, like, I feel like his decision should be easy and he's made it harder himself.
But the thing is, I think that he recognizes that a few times.
I don't know, because at times it seems like there's clarity and then it just kind of fades. And no, I haven't read the manga, so this is going off personally what I've seen.
Yeah, I would say that. Well, I sometimes they don't do as much justice into kind of maybe making him actually think harder about it in his choices. I think that, like, at this point, it was what, like, almost 10 years that he's been waiting for this opportunity. You tell anybody who's been waiting for 10 years to do something, to just be like, no, just give it up. Like, that's 10 years.
No, I know. It's revenge, but, like, I get it. And it's like, I just like how the dynamic changed, not from his perspectives, but even from Askeladd's perspective, you saw in the end. Yeah. It was very much like a father figure in the sense of being like...
Oh, they did an excellent job.
Yeah. I don't know if really...
I think that it builds on itself to the point where if they told me that season 2 was starting tomorrow, I would be very, very happy.
Well, obviously, we're going to watch the next season because we like history. Well, I like history. And obviously, we've invested in these characters. And if the animation continues as it is, like, we still have some characters that I'm still invested in. Like I said, Torkel. Obviously, it's horrendously...
I like the character of Canute. I think that Canute is an excellent character as well.
Canute hasn't, like, grown on me as such, just because he's, like, the archetype of every, like, brat prince sort of thing in my mind. But again, that's me being history nerd and watch too much movies. Anyways, so it's just personally me. It hasn't grown on me because I'm like, of course this happened, blah, 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 blah. But that's not on the fault of the anime, and I know you're going to point that out, so I'm helping you out here. So no, the anime itself, the music was good, the moments were good, the art was mostly good. The odd time they chose to do CG was...
I liked that they didn't shy away from, like, how awful wartime was at that time. Like,
Honestly,
people being like, it's the next Berserk, and like, you can't just call something the next Berserk because it's kind of like hardcore in the way that it will show like
reality,
stabbing and cutting off limbs and stuff.
It's like my favorite episode is probably one that most of you wouldn't guess because, and I don't say that in a belittling way because I'm assuming you'd be like, oh, this battle, this blah, 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 because all of you have told me like, oh, this is my favorite episode. My favorite episode was honestly his moment with Bjorn. And his moment where it's like, I thought we were friends. And he's like, you were my friend. And I was just like, yeah. And I was just like, it broke my heart. It was so well done. The moment was poignant. And I knew it was coming already when they had that little moment in like the little shack there. Where he's just like, oh, can you still like carry a sword? And he's like, yeah, I'm still good, you know. And I was just like, oh. But, like, that was my favorite moment because it was so poignant. It meant a lot. It said a lot without saying much. He didn't even have to say that he was friends. Like, you knew it was true. That was probably my favorite moment. And, yes, there were other moments. I know a lot of you like the slaying of the town. If I can say that.
My favorite moment would be... And I love that the anime is okay with, like... It kind of mythologizes how powerful Torkel is.
Yeah.
Like,
and
his ability. Like,
his whole history itself, I could go on a whole video of, like, what cool things are about history.
The fact that he kicks somebody who blocks his attack, what is it, 30 feet in the air?
Just goes straight up. I was like, well, he's fucked.
And that's awesome. He just kind of looks around, he's like, and there is no
and he's
way
just
around
unconscious.
it. Yeah, he's just like, this is gonna suck.
And it was so funny because when we were watching it, I was like, there's no way he's not harmed. Then he went and sat up, and I was like, of course he's not harmed. Then his arm went down, I was like, I was like, it just happened so, it was so well cut, where it's like straight down. I was like, oh god.
And the thing is, and I said that I thought it might go this route, is that at the end of the first season, it showed some glimpses of what might be some other characters who are kind of coming into the mix. And so it might be an issue where we're going to jump to another character. We're going to do another story that somehow intersects into this.
Yeah.
So we're not just... At the end of the day, the anime is the weakest when it focuses on Thorfinn.
Yeah.
That's when it's at its weakest. It's better when he is being kind of led around into these other situations. I think Canute is a more interesting character, and his story is more interesting. Torkel, I mean, he's funny, and he's interesting, and he is like the very definition of what a Viking is supposed to be at this time, so he's really interesting to look at. Askeladd's story is the best one in the season for sure, and the thing is, if we're going to have more people who are going to come in and sort of influence the story, and it becomes more like an anthology series as opposed to, this is Thorfinn's story, that makes it all the better. Because Thorfinn is hard to like, he's hard to root for.
Especially like when they've made him out to be kind of like a wild animal, and I'm like, okay, calm down.
But I mean, and again, the anime hasn't necessarily done as good a job with showing that, but I think that it is implying that, like, especially with the last few episodes where he, like, genuinely is, like, he feels badly about not following his father's path. Or I think that he shows that he's like, I don't need anybody to tell me that what I am doing is totally against what my father said. He's like, I know that, and it's killing him. Because a couple of times when he did have the opportunity to have a little bit of peace, like, he looked peaceful. He looked happy. Those are the only times that he ever looked happy.
I can't tell if he learns anything, though. It's just like a moment of, like, seemingly, like, at peace, and then he just goes back to being a monster. And I'm like, I don't know if he learned anything, or if it's just, like, a nice angle that, like, yeah, he looked momentarily happy thinking about murdering. Like, I don't know.
And the one thing I will say is that in all of the times when he is focusing solely on this revenge, he never looks happy about it. He never looks satisfied. Yeah. He never looks like, this is going to be the thing that, like, sets me free. He looks angry. He looks vengeful. He looks broken.
Yeah. But that's how he's looked the whole time. So
well, not before his dad passed.
Well, no, I mean, obviously, from the moment.
But
it's
like
been 11 years of being miserable.
But I mean, I think they do a good job of showing that, and in the final episode that happened here, like, he was confronted with, like what is it after revenge? What happens next? And he breaks down and has absolutely no idea.
But I share the same feelings as Askeladd. He's like, what are you going to do after this? You probably haven't thought of that. And I was like, no, he hasn't, because he doesn't think about shit. Like,
no. But then it's poignant, because it's like, this is what, like, revenge does to you. Yeah. It kills you too.
Yeah.
It destroys you. And I feel like it could do a better job of having him actually think about that and have them talk to that.
That's the thing. If he's the main character, I want more of his thoughts, but I don't get that. It's like, oh yeah, he's the main character. Let's now think about this person. I'm like, for the love of God, just look at anybody else then, because I don't care about him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And maybe that, I'm assuming, since everybody talks about how great the manga is, these sorts of things do happen later. It's a slower build. It's a slower story. So maybe there will be a payoff for all of that later. I'm assuming that there must be in some capacity.
Yeah.
But it bogs down the anime.
Yeah.
It does. And that's the reason why, Vinland Saga is at this point instead of being higher up. There are some things about it. One of the major ones being that our quote-unquote main character is largely unlikable, and you kind of almost hope for him to be harmed.
Yeah. Anytime he's with Askeladd, I was like, just let one just rip and just cut him open. But I was like, whatever. That was like the last episode where it was showing like the different areas where these people were. Of course, they don't show their fucking face except for one. But it was just like whipping across in CG. I was like, huh?
Yeah.
I was like, for the love of God, just draw some fucking mountains. Jesus Christ.
The mountains wasn't bad. To me,
when it was getting to the mountains, once it was sitting there, it was like,
they have a tendency to
like,
use a lot of CG when it comes to the ocean. And I mean, like, I get it, because I can understand why doing that hand-drawn would take a long time.
But commit to it. It could be so awesome.
Like, these are Vikings. They're going to spend a lot of time on water. Make the water
Can't wait for it to look the same. Anyways.
It was very
overall,
good.
Enjoyable. Like I said before, there's certain things that kind of go along with history, or I should say like mythos, things like that. So certain things are going on. So it's a way I can predict where it could possibly go, but who knows how many things they take for liberties here. So either way, give it a watch. Good show. I was about to say good, and I was about to say not exactly history, but a good show. Historical, yeah, that's what they'll label it. I wouldn't call it historical, but yeah, let's call it something. Anyways, let's go to the next one. Next up, number 7, Kanata no Astra. And we had a lot of fun with it. We weren't sure, like, we didn't know the source material. We didn't know anything about it.
Was it source material? Or was it an original?
I thought there was. Maybe there. I'll check when we're talking. For some reason, I thought there was source material, but it might have been an OG.
I don't remember. For some reason, I was under the impression that it was an original.
Well, look here. My brain's tired.
But,
anywho, great show. Really great animation. It was very much a whodunit, but at the same token, very political. Very nicely wrapped up in one season. Said what it needed to say. Got out. It was very enjoyable.
It was a perfect mix of a lot of different sci-fi elements that worked really well in tandem with each other. There was a lot of kind of Star Trek-esque elements to it, but for those who are like, well, you know what, I didn't really love, some stuff about Star Trek. I didn't love, like, how slow it was at times and, like, all of the peaceful stuff that's going on and whatnot. Well, then there was, the whodunit element, so there's a good kind of almost like a murder mystery kind
That's
of
what
thing.
Sucked me in initially. And, so I was like, fuck yeah, murder mystery, bitches.
And so there was that element to it. They did a perfect amount, I feel like, of science and like a fantasy sort of element where they were going to different planets and everything that they found there was a scientific element to it. There was like a scientific basis where you were like, I could understand why a planet would evolve to have these elements on it, but it was also very fantastical in the way that they presented it, which I think is it's a perfect middle ground where sometimes science fiction leans too heavily on the science and it kind of bogs people down. Sugar will attest to the fact she's not the biggest fan of The Expanse because that is a little too scientific. It's a little too slow, a little too
I don't know if I can give
boring.
it a chance to say all those things about it. Just the few episodes I've watched, it's just really slow for me. I'm not somebody, like, other than Star Wars, I can't think of and Star Trek. Other than those two shows, I can't think of anything space related that I was like, fuck, that was a good movie or TV series. Just because there's not a lot to do in space, which makes you feel that way. Like, I watched, what's it called? Galactica.
Yeah.
And overall it was okay. I know a lot of people love it, not knocking it. But it wasn't something that I thoroughly enjoyed because I'm like, there's only so much that can happen on a spaceship, right? And it's like the same thing that happens in every show to me. It's like kind of like the Vinland Saga thing where I was like, I know where this is going. This is history, blah, 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 blah. But with this, it's kind of the same where it's like, it's space. These things are going to happen in space. There's going to be an issue, blah, 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 and all this crap. But it did enough in space. And the fact that especially that they had the chance to visit many planets to kind of give that diversity to explore characters, to explore their abilities, to explore what their interests are and things like that. And then to answer the question, it did have a manga. It was published in 2016. Never read the manga, so can't say.
Go.
But
it was very well done. I felt like every single episode something of consequence happened, something happened that made me really enjoy that episode while at the same time being like, I can't wait for the next one to come.
We're like, woo!
Yeah, and the story, again, it is this perfect marriage of science and the fictional / fantasy sort of element to it.
Yeah.
There were a couple of leaps you had to make it all work, but at the same point, when Sugar, of all people, was like,
I'm satisfied.
Oh my god! And everything made sense. Like,
yeah.
That Sugar and I have had a lot of conversations in the past where if there is like a mystery and they just don't give you enough of the information to actually piece it together yourself, she's basically
I
like,
get so angry.
That's not a mystery. She's
Yeah.
like, that is just
a cheat.
Stuff happening where you can never have had enough information to actually be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
This one, something happened within the storytelling. And we both looked at each other and we were like, did we miss something? Or did they literally, like, did that, like, happen? And then we were like,
and it was so
no.
funny.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
So we'd be watching something and I'd be like, pause it. Is that a red herring? Pause it. Yeah. We'd both be doing that, where it gave you a fair chance to be like, okay, these things were said for a reason. These motions were made for a reason. Like, and it gave you, like, for a while where it's like, okay, these are the viable options. Who is it, though? And it's like, you're always watching them in each episode. I'm sure Jeff enjoyed it more for being space and adventure. Where the whole time I'm, like, looking at the screen.
No,
I'm like, who is it?
I love the whodunit elements as well. I think everybody can get some joy out of a really well done, whodunit sort of element. And
So,
that was done
just
really
so you
well.
know, nobody murdered anybody. The whodunit part was that we learned early on that somebody has compromised their mission, the whole, like, what their original plan was. That somebody on board, that of the people that are there, had something to do with them getting lost in space and are actively working against them. So to me, it was kind of like a board game. I was like, let's get the culprit. Let's fucking figure out who it is. So every time somebody did something, I was like, was that an actual accident or was that intentional?
Yep.
It's just like we were always going back and forth.
All of the pieces fit together very well.
Yeah.
It was like, there was a huge part of me that was like, man, I wish it was a little bit longer. But then there was another part of me that said,
it would have wrecked it, yeah.
I don't know about wrecking.
But it's always running that fear of wrecking it after like things get like super complicated. Because by the end when they're explaining stuff, it's like, okay, I can be okay with this. Some people weren't okay with it, but it's like the way they explained it. I was like, they've used this excuse in other movies, so I'm okay with it.
Oh yeah,
it's like this jives.
I thought everything kind of made sense. There's equal amounts of, like I said, like the science and the fiction and the fantasy and like
the
history.
characters are super likable too.
The characters are awesome. The animation is really well done. Like I said, when they land on a new planet, it is equal parts science and like fantasy, which is perfect because that is our imaginations about like what will these other planets be like?
Yeah.
And we're like, well, we don't want it just to be like Earth 2. Like, let's have something unique and interesting. And these ones were unique and interesting, but they reflected enough of what we know about science and the actual like way in which planets would actually form that it made sense.
Yeah.
Everything about it, like, it's just, if you like a mystery show, this is for you.
And
if you like space operas, this show is for you. If you just like, oh, hey, here's a bunch of school-aged kids who are on an adventure together, this anime is for you. This can work with so many different types of anime fans.
Yeah.
And we were looking at it earlier today before we recorded, and it has shot up a little bit and how many people have watched it and what people were actually feeling about it. And I am so happy that it has found
more audience.
An audience. And the audience is really appreciating it. And it's another... I feel sometimes that Sugar and I, that we tend to... We're somewhat...
I'm worried where this is going.
No. We're somewhat populist. Like, we don't...
I thought you were going to say popular. I was like, I don't know about that.
We're populist in the sense that I feel that a lot of our anime choices and a lot of what we watch are... They're things that lots of people do. There isn't a lot of times where we watch something where we're like, it feels like we're the only ones who are talking about it. We're the only ones who make a video and stuff like that. Whereas with Kanata no Astra, I remember talking about it with people who are huge anime fans,
like, what
who
the
watch
fuck are you
stuff all the
talking
time,
about?
and they're like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what you're talking about.
They're like, it's airing this season? It's like,
yeah. And so now this is like one of those choices where I feel like, you know what? If our podcast here gets another dozen people to go out and check it out, I'm so happy that it gets another dozen people. Sort of the same thing that Sugar felt a few years ago, and she was singing the praises of Bakano, and like, if at the time, not a lot of people.
It was like a new religion, and I was like, oh fuck, have you seen Bakano? Yeah. Oh my god, you should watch Bakano. And
now Bakano has a legitimately large following to the point where there's people who are just clamoring and begging for more.
Yeah.
And I've heard rumblings that they're looking at maybe doing something.
I have never heard of this, and I will refuse to believe it until I get confirmation. But anyways, Bakano is great. Totally unrelated. And Kanata no Astra didn't air this season. This is the season it was airing in.
Yeah.
But it was really great. I like a whodunit. You know, we're talking about spoilers here to explain stuff. This is one of the few I won't go into because I don't want to give away things with characters. I don't want to give away, like, our great moments, which Jeff knows, when they're like, did they not mention that the entire time? I was like, oh my god! And so I was like...
And so we both... Yeah, there was a moment where we both looked at each other. We were like, no. Like, did they...
Yeah,
did they not?
Don't say what though,
yeah. And then like, we both like went back to a couple of episodes and we were like,
play it back!
Oh my god, they didn't.
I was like, why?
There was no cheat there.
No.
They bamboozled us.
Yeah.
They
just like, fuck.
It's just a magician at work, and they do it right in front of your eyes, and you're like, you did it. I had no idea.
It's one of those things when somebody does the trick and you're smiling, you're like, I don't know how you did it, but it was fucking good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was, and it was good. It's like, if you like any of those mysteries, I loved it, because it gave you a fair chance to guess, and by the end, if you hadn't guessed, it's like, blah, and it's like, I was right. Or wrong. Yeah. You know, whatever. So I'd say definitely give it a shot. Space, mystery, teens, you name it. Has a lot of things going for it. A lot of likable characters. A lot of interesting planets. A lot of exploration. Get into it. Let's move on. Number 6 on our list. It's a new one, but it seems like a good one. Beastars.
Oh, yeah.
And just to start, the opening with the little, like, claymation thing. This is so cute. Anyways.
That's one of the best openers of the year.
So cute. Anyways, the show, very much like Zootopia in the sense of, like, personified animals. I guess anthropomorphic? Is that the word? Yeah. Anthropomorphic. Very much Zootopia in the sense of, like, getting this foundation of we understand, like, certain behaviors that are and aren't acceptable in, like, the animal kingdom, especially at this school. Things that happen outside of the school boundaries. Of course, we start the show with a murder. Not a spoiler. It happens literally within the first few minutes. Even if it was, we're talking big deals here.
I mean, it's not just a murder. It is a devouring of a herbivore by what we assume is a carnivore.
Yeah. And so it nicely melds, though. Like, I know a lot of you, I'm speaking to all of you, really like Land of the Lustrous, and I couldn't get into it, and I didn't like how it looked. But this especially Beastars, seems to perfect using CG along with hand-drawn stills. Like, it moves so nicely, and the fact that I'm not mad at it. It looks really good, and I like how it looks way better than the manga. I've been reading the manga. It looks way better.
Yeah.
And it's just very good. It deals with a lot of, politics, behaviors, ideologies, just the way this world works. I'd say the only downfall it has, just the last few episodes here, kind of went like from 8 to 10 in like a holy shit, like now we have guns sort of thing. But that was one thing I didn't see coming, because I was like, oh, they just have, whatever. But anyways, so I kind of was like, whoa, shit. Otherwise, I like the dynamics. I like that, again, it's almost like a whodunit, because we still don't know who killed one of our characters in the beginning. He's a llama? Alpaca. I'm going to say llama. And so he died, and we still don't know who killed him. They just assume it's a carnivore because of all the blood and everything else that was made, but we still don't know. So we're still kind of a whodunit, but mainly it's the fact of Lugosi, who's our main character, who's very much, he's a big wolf, but at the same token, he is very passive, very timid, very much doesn't want to bare his fangs. He doesn't want to be like the stereotypical wolf.
Well, I mean, baring your fangs is also technically like something that you can get in trouble.
But I mean, in the sense of when you think of like a wolf, it's like grrr. But like he's very much like he's
a cuddly teddy bear.
He purposefully tries to come off as more soft.
Yeah, I mean, the anime is also it is an excellent character study. It uses anthropomorphic...
And it has lots of foreshadowing.
It uses anthropomorphic characters, similar to what Zootopia did. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Zootopia was influenced by this, or the other way around. I'm not sure which came out first.
I think this came out after. I'll look at the manga.
Using anthropomorphic characters as an avenue to talk about discrimination, to talk about relationships and things of that nature... using anthropomorphic characters is always about trying to being able to approach kind of difficult things to talk about in an easier sort of way, because you're not dealing with hardcore racism. It is like these animals versus these animals, and it's the herbivores versus the carnivores and all that sort of stuff. So it's used obviously to take a look at what would be human kind of foibles. And yeah, like the anime does an excellent job of looking at what ends up happening to Lugosi in this society, where he has to repress his natural desire, like his what kind of, in a way, is a part of himself. And all of the carnivores have to. They have to forego that element of themselves to fit in with this area, because this is where carnivores and herbivores are all working together, and it's also a school, and there's just as much like stupid school drama that's happening, as well as kind of the bigger elements of the show. So the reason it's called Beastars is because one student a year is proclaimed as the Beast Star, the Beastar, and that's a huge deal. Basically, it's sort of like, prom king, or prom queen all year round. And different characters want to use that in a way to push forward, good morals or their own moral standing.
Not even just that. It's kind of like being like school president, so to speak. It's like that. So Zootopia was early 2016. Manga came out late 2016, so September-ish.
I wouldn't be surprised if this was heavily influenced by what Zootopia did.
Who knows?
And the storytelling is wonderful, and it gets into some very kind of adult sort of, or late teen situations. It's not afraid to just kind of go for it. It's not afraid to talk about bigotry and what is essentially, like racism and things of that nature.
But it also goes into, like, public perception and stereotypes. Like, a large part of the show is about him having a crush on Haru, who is a bunny. And it's like, oh, it's just your instincts. You don't love her. You just want to eat her and all this stuff. And it's like, oh, it's very taboo to be seen together. You shouldn't be together. And if obviously you're together, you're trying to hurt her and all this stuff. And it's just like, what? It's just like, I'm walking with her sort of thing. So it goes a lot into prejudice as well.
And, Lugosi is just, out of all of the anime we watched this year, I think
he's so adorable.
One of, if not the most likable characters in anime this year.
He's like one of those
wonderful
people that's so awkward it's cute. And it's just like, oh my god.
But it's a kind of awkward that I think everybody relates to, because everybody has had those awkward sort of moments. And even if maybe you were kind of, suave with members of the opposite sex, so maybe you don't get that, but you might have been awkward because, like, you were super tall or you were super short.
Around somebody you liked, and you're like, I said something really stupid, and it's like, oh god.
Yeah, and so everything about it is very top quality. It took us probably maybe about 10 minutes of watching it before we just kind of got used to the animation style as it is.
And don't be mistaken, we've mentioned it before, Zootopia is very much meant for everyone. This is very much more adult. We have, violence. We're talking about, animals eating other animals. We're talking about, basically, I was about to say sexual relationships. I was about to say the sex trade, too, but that's another thing. But
it's not afraid to...
It's not afraid to go there, and it's very much not for kids.
Yes.
Zootopia was more for kids, so don't get that wrong.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, always take a look. But
yeah, obviously.
Yeah, that's
some people are like, why would you never mention that? I was like, I just thought you'd look it up before you watched it. But
something that I admire about it is that lots of story, and there's a history of that as well, like, Fritz the Cat and whatnot.
Oh, there's a huge story with,
they use an anthro world that is all about getting pretty much around a hard X rating.
Oh, so that's way over.
There's a history of using anthro characters that way as well, but this is just...
There's no way like Fritz the Cat. Let's make that 100% clear.
This is a mature story about real life prejudice and stereotypes.
But told through animals.
And told through animals.
Yeah.
And Haru also is a wonderful character, and you really root
complicated.
for her. Yeah, they're all complicated. Lugosi is complicated.
Lewis
is very complicated, and it takes... another thing that I won't mention names, but sometimes anthro worlds will not... They won't lean hard enough into the fact that they're animals. It's just like, oh... They're animals because I want them to be animals, but it's a very human world.
And it gets very into, like, what's it called? What's it called? When people, like, things look too much like humans or something, and it, like... Uncanny Valley, thank you.
If anybody wants to watch more on that sort of stuff, Saber Spark is a creator we love, and he looks at all that sort of stuff where he's like, this is weird and gross. And he's admitted to the fact that he's not like a furry, but he loves anthropomorphic characters.
Yeah. It just happens that half the stuff he watches ends up being furry.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, and so this does a really good job of still placing it within an animal world and taking into account the actual, science and animal behaviors that would exist.
Like, one of the things I love, and it totally addresses in one of the episodes, where it's like, yeah, they're anthro, but, we're still in an animal world, where it's like, okay, it's like, it's not allowed in school that you have any meat, so what do you do? And, all these things have different behaviors, different things. So it's like, okay, since you've had to do this, the wolves go into, a nocturnal kind of room where they have to sit and kind of, adjust and be, there with their own kind sort of thing. And then they can go out in their day, and it's supposed to be a certain amount of time they spend in their rooms. Other ones are, in burrows and whatever, and, they have to be there to kind of just chill the fuck out. And then they have, diets that are totally... fulfilling their hunger and protein and iron and things like that, but not being meat. It shows all of that too. So it nicely, not just
it
with
is a
making
very well crafted
world.
Anthropomorphic world.
Yeah,
and it's just excellent story. And the second that the season was done, I was like, I want more.
Yeah.
I want
I was like,
more
this
of
is
story.
bullshit. He's like, what's bullshit? I was like, the fact that it's ended.
But they did say at the end, they're like, season 2, yay! And I was like,
oh, it had to have happened, because I would have been upset if it didn't.
I was going to say, I think a lot of people are really enjoying it, and enjoying it in ways that they didn't realize that they were going to enjoy it. Like, it is a very well-crafted story. It is a well-realized world. It is animated really well. The Japanese performances
are really good.
Wonderful. It is in association with Netflix, so it seems like Netflix will be putting it on and doing a dub in some capacity.
Oh, good.
So, you know, if you're somebody who needs to watch the dub, watch for it at some point.
And you know for sure it's going to be on Netflix?
I mean, it's in association with Netflix.
Okay, then,
so I can't... It's in the credits, so I
just couldn't remember. It's been a long
imagine
week.
that they wouldn't.
It's a long week.
So, I mean, it is worth the time investment. And,
sorry.
and there is going to be some story thread that you attach yourself to, even if it's like...
That's like the beginning where like, oh, Lewis is such an asshole. Fuck that guy. And then as we got time alone with him and like his thoughts and his feelings, I was like, okay, I like Lewis.
He's very complex, and he's like one of the driving elements of him is the fact that he's like, I hate the fact that you played down to me. He's like, you are 10 times stronger than me, and you won't ever show me your strength because you're so afraid of your own strength. And he hates the fact that he's not strong.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, you just think I'm so weak, you won't be like that way with me. And no, he's like, what?
Yeah, he's like, no, like I'm not that way with anyone.
Anybody,
and he's like, and it's against the rules of the school. I'm not that kind of person. And he's just like, no, like you are just playing down to me because I am an herbivore. I am not a carnivore. And oh man, where his story goes is crazy.
Yeah.
It is so well done. And
so
we can't really sing its praises high enough. If anything of what we said sounds remotely interesting,
and you know I bitch all the time about CG, so that's a big deal for me.
Yeah, it's good. The CG.
Whole thing is mainly CG.
And I didn't think Land of the Lustrous looked terrible.
No, it's not the fact that it looked terrible.
Yeah.
It's just the way that it moved, and I can't explain it. There's just something about it I didn't like, and I couldn't sit there and watch. A lot of you loved it. I know you do because you told me, and that's perfectly fine. But it's just something about it I can't quite put my finger on. Where I was like, I don't like watching this.
Yeah.
It wasn't enjoyable to watch. It seemed very much CG, where I'm like, I can't take myself out of the fact
and now, like,
that it looks that way.
Beastars, like, when I first saw the trailers for it, I was like, man, I wish this was classically animated. And now I'm like...
Initially, I was worried.
I'm actually like, it would annoy me if, like, this... I like this. I like how it looks. I like the way what they're doing with it.
So right away they're like, oh, it's gonna be like the same people, and I'm like, oh man, like, and it's just like, well, they're gonna do CG. And I was like, oh man, like I really wanted to watch this, and then once we started watching it, I was like, oh, that looks really seamless. Like there's the odd frame where it kind of cuts in and out, but like overall, where I was like, that looked nice. I can watch this. Where I was just like, I really like this. Yeah. So it was good. Well done, CG.
I would say that this of any really good anime, but it's like after every episode, my thought was like, man, I wish I had another one. Like I want more and more and more and more and more. I want more of this world. I want more of these characters. I want more of their narrative. I want more everything. Yeah. And the fact they're getting a second season, I'm like, oh yes.
Yes.
I want more of the panda as well.
You'll see why. Give it a watch. Let us know what you think. Let's move on. Next up, we have number 5, which is Fire Force. It's been so good! I know the only thing I can say right off the bat, because I know you're going to say it, is the fact that it has some fan service. That's literally the only thing I can think of in there. At the moment, all I can think of is having some fan service that wasn't needed or warranted. Otherwise, so good. Animation, everything fight-wise. I want to believe they like recruited everyone from Naruto and brought them over. And we're like, fuck, we're going to make amazing fight scenes. They're going to look so good. We're going to have amazing soundtracks. So then whenever it hits like fucking awesome, be like, and it sounds so good. It looks so good. Everything's awesome. Great voice acting. from a lot of people. Great moments. I love everything to do with the characters' eyes. The greatest moments happen around them. Like Habana's moment, I still play over and over. We have our moment where he comes in to save her. Tamaki. We have other moments like when we have with the other division, with the fellows that have like their whole like festival sort of thing. I love them. I love his eyes too. I love everything. Then we have like the Joker. His eyes are really different. Everybody's so cool. I love everything about it. I like the story they're doing. I like where it's heading. I like some of the things they've insinuated. I like, well, Jeff likes, I know I can speak for him on this fact, some of like the distorted imaging they have to get a point across. Several times where he's like, fuck, that was a good moment. Just from that still shot of like having a warped image. And it's like hard to explain without showing you. Maybe I'll put up for this, I'll put up a picture in the corner or something so you can see what I mean. Very good moments. Very solid. All this, like, I love all the sound effects they have, especially with the Adola links where it's like, like you think it would be annoying after a while, but it's very appeasing for some weird reason.
I think using audio cues in that way. It just how to phrase it?
It's like not Chekhov's gun, but I said the wrong thing. But the guy who did with dogs. With the ringing of the bell. Help me out here, please. Oh, the guy who did experiments on dogs said they'd salivate and want treats every time they associated with the bell. Oh my god.
I can't think of its name.
Oh my god. I
was just thinking more like using audio cues in that way just kind of, it signifies like importance and weight and worth.
So the thing I just said.
What? I don't know how the dog salivating has anything
I have to look
do
it up
with
now because it's going to drive me fucking insane. Pavlov! Thank you! God, I helped myself. The Pavlov.
Pavlov's dog?
Going crazy.
I don't know where Pavlov's dog comes from, but I'm just saying that.
Just the sense that, like, even, like, initially it shows you what the sounds mean, but even with the Adola link, after a while, it sounds off, and you're like, oh shit, what happens next is important, because it's taught you that it's important what happens next.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say!
I don't know where Pavlov's dog comes in there, but I understand what you're trying to say.
You. Did you not know Pavlov experiments?
Yes,
okay, so the idea that it plants in your head the fact that these sounds mean something good, and it's rewarding, so you get excited. So and they show you the thing, so you know exactly what you're going to see. So as soon as you hear the noise again, you expect awesome things to happen, and it does.
Okay. I get that.
It's a cue to be excited.
Yeah, I felt like Pavlov's dog was an interesting jump to make. Not saying that you're wrong.
That's what I'm saying. It's not a jump. It's a comparison.
Yeah, no,
that's
but I mean,
valid.
No, it's valid. Like I said, it was just wouldn't have been the first thing I would have thought of. But
teachers, they think of stupid shit.
Yeah. But to go through things a little bit more. A little bit more kind of how we normally do. As opposed to, Sugar kind of just gushed a mile a minute about a million different things. The animation is fantastic. I would say in its fight choreography and the fight animations, I'd say it's very close, if not equal, to My Hero Academia. Like, I think that the actual fight elements are that good. The combat. The way in which they can use fire, like, to essentially explain a lot of weird, crazy powers is really cool.
How it, like, affects time, how it affects cooling, how it affects, like, other things. It's, like, scientifically it all makes sense. Unbelievable at times, but makes sense.
Leaps, but, yeah. All of the characters are very well written. You know that a lot of characters are kind of hiding some things under the surface. They're hiding information. They're hiding their true intentions. Mm-hmm. But at the same point, you still love them and you want good things to happen for them. And we're watching the dub. The dub voices, I feel, are very good. They're very appropriate. And the narrative, a complaint that I had heard towards up until about the midway point was a lot of people thought that it was going too slow, which that boggles my mind. I'm like, I feel like the anime is going at a perfectly reasonable clip. I think that the narrative is moving sometimes a little too fast for my liking. I would like sometimes for them to kind of slow down. At the same point, there hasn't been any sort of filler. If this continues on for a long time,
well, we don't know if there's a lot of filler because we haven't read the manga. I only started reading.
If there was any filler, it never felt like filler. All of this felt like it was very important. It felt like their arcs went from one important element to another that built on each other really well. Mm-hmm. You've got... I love...
Jeff loves Giovanni.
Giovanni as a character is really cool. I love the world building that they've done. Some of it is like really fantastical, and I'm fine with that. You know, it's a world where essentially a bunch of people... The entire planet basically almost started on fire all at once. So yeah, some weird shit's going on. And that's cool. That's fine. They've justified a lot of stuff so far. The finale of the first season just happened, and there was still stuff that information they gave us where it's like, whoa, wait, what? So they're still like surprising us. The fight choreography, though, is just...
stellar.
It is fantastic. It rivals some of the best stuff in My Hero Academia, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. It is up to that level, in my opinion.
Ooh, that's a scary comparison.
Just in fight choreography. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is the best shonen ever made to me. I'm not saying Fire Force is that good. Obviously, if it was, we would have it above My Hero Academia, and we would have it probably as number one on this list. It does have some issues where, for some reason, there's some fan service for... no particular reason. Sugar has mentioned before in the past that there's fan service that is kind of understandable and almost like laudable in a way. We're both fans of Fairy Tail, and Sugar will be like, that kind of fan service to her is like, you just love those characters so much that you want to show off as much of them as you can before it gets too bad. Whereas here, it just doesn't make a lot of sense sometimes. Yeah, it's done.
I'm a connoisseur of fan service. But seriously, though, like Fairy Tail, like they did several like scenes, and I think I've talked about this in another podcast, where like they rightfully come out and say like, oh, they're like with Sorcerer Weekly, where they have the girls in swimsuits and they have contests, and you know, it's very much obvious. But we're like, there's certain episodes here where girls just suddenly fall out of their clothes, which makes no physical sense, like logically, and then it's just not needed in the moment at all. And it was like, you're doing great telling a story. Why did you interrupt it with this? Which I know some of you don't mind fan service, but just when it's so senseless, it jars me a little. That's the only thing I can say about the show that is like irks me. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I get it. You want to see her naked. I get it. And like the author is a bit more vulgar with the manga I've read. Again, I'm not caught up to where we are, so I've only read a bit. But like comments that are made and things that are shown, like, God, hiccups. Sorry. And like, it's much more than the anime. Thank God it's not the same in the anime. But I think it's just the author, how he is. I don't know a lot about him, quite honestly, but I get the impression that he likes them very much.
I don't recall that, and neither of us are very familiar with Soul Eater, but I never heard that issue with Soul Eater before, so I don't know if Soul Eater didn't have that issue, or if it did, it wasn't that, like... Because,
like, for example, there's, like, one character we have, Tamaki, who, like, for example, it's like, oh, she tripped and fell, and then, like, somebody's hands went up, like, her top, and then went up into her boobs, and she fell, and then her pants came... Like, it was just stupid. Just utter stupidity, and it wasn't necessary, because the show can stand on its own 2 feet, and doesn't need that, like, fan service to draw on those people that would like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's my only problem with it. Otherwise, everything else is great. The sound effects, the music, the characters, the way things are drawn. Like, I see a lot of Soul Eater, obviously, in it. I didn't... Goodness, my voice. Soul Eater, I didn't watch to completion. I watched some of it, then somebody told me how it ended, and it pissed me off, and I didn't watch it. Long story short. But in essence, you can see a lot of the art style that was in that show move into this show, but taken up a notch, so it looks very much up my alley artistically, where I love like Hibana's look. I love her moment with our main character. I love the moment where we have oh god, my brain's just crapping out. Gosh, what is his name? Benny Maru.
Oh yes.
Excuse me. Like we were talking
Benny.
about from the Benny from the other Fire Force, who has again very beautiful eyes and has different techniques as well, and has different kind of philosophy on things. I love that they're kind of how they meld together. It's just enjoyable, and I really like it. I like all of it artistically, how it looks, and very much how they dress. A lot of the time, like when they're in their regular gear, says a lot about their character. Like Benny Maru has a lot of loose-fitting clothing, very chill, very like hanging off of him at times, which very much says his personality. He really does not give a fuck unless you're in his way, which is like, get the fuck out of my face, I want to go do this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of characters are very easy to identify just by how they're wearing. Like Hibana herself, like just very prissy. She thinks that she's above others, but she is a kitty cat underneath it. So very enjoyable, very fun. If you like shonen, if you like action, if you like fighting, this would be good. It's not completely all fighting, and it's not huge sequences, but the small sequences they have are very pleasurable to watch, especially this last little bit here. Very enjoyable. Let's move on. So that leads us into our number 4, which is Mob Psycho. The newest season, season 2. Very, 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 very good.
There's a lot of berries in there.
The only thing I can say about it that it's its its downfall, which I know Jeff can attest to, is the first kind of little bit seems to kind of be disjointed in the sense of it kind of being kind of scattered for a story, but then it decides to settle on its focus and tell the story as it needs to be and finishes hard.
Yes.
So I think that's its only downfall, quite honestly. It's consistent with animation, consistent with music, consistent with characters. Great character development in the next season. I think Gigaki even mentioned like one of the ones that we'll look back on and be like, that's a classic. It's one of those ones that it will be. It had great messaging, great morals, great everything. One of my favorite moments in the entire season is the fact that Mob gets to understand Reagan and what his truth really is. And then, like Reagan says, he's like, I know that you've heard all these things, and he's like really upset, and he doesn't know how to come back from it. And Mob's like, I know exactly who you are. You're a good guy. And it's like, almost made me cry, because I was just like, oh! I was
You're
like,
my master.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, we're friends. And I was just like, oh, God. And I was like, so good. And then its ending was like really good. Very nice fight scenes, very good everything, kind of wrapped up nicely. Led into a possible 3rd season if it ever happened.
It will.
Just, yeah. But, yeah, probably.
Do they like money? Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll get a 3rd season. It just continues to build on what the first season did, and it relies so heavily on the fact that Mob is, again, just one of the most likable people in anime.
So nice. He's such a sweetheart, where he just is so well intended.
Yeah, and that dichotomy where you know what his like psyche is capable of, and who he is versus what he can be. There is this interesting dichotomy where you're always like, it's always like a hype fucking moment when he does kind of lose control and you see what he is capable of, but you also kind of fear for him a little bit because you're like,
I don't know what this means.
I don't want you to have to go through this. I just want another one where I just want him to be happy. I want him to be with the girl that he likes. I want his brother and him to have their good relationship, and he gets to meet up with Reagan.
I love the fitness club, and they make me so happy.
And the fitness club does that, and like everything that he does is just a reflection of trying to improve himself and be a better version of who he is, and that's the core messaging of the entire series is basically that yes, Mob is capable of basically destroying cities. He has this ability, but
he doesn't have to be a nice person.
And he loses himself in that. That this kind of power means that he is no longer himself. And it is more important for him to be himself And this is in comparison to everybody else that he finds that have powers who try to fight him, is that they lose themselves to this power. And the whole time he's just like, why can't you just be happy being you? You don't have to be the most powerful anything. You don't have to be, anything beyond just being the best you.
And I like that moment, like, that was near the end, is very Avatar, where it's like, Mob, you have to make a decision on what you stand for. Because it's like, this person isn't here to fuck around. They will kill you. Yep. And it's just like, you have to make a choice on what you want this to be. And it's just like, because he's not going to pull punches. There's not going to be walking away from this. You have to end it now. And I like that, where it's very much where he takes a stand, but does it in his own way as per usual.
Yeah,
which is
he's Mob.
Because he's Mob. And so, and the way it wraps up is very nice. Kind of our conclusion for some of our characters. Some of them joining the agency. I like that very much. I like the way things just keep going. I like the OVA for it. I know it's not included in the series, but I still liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. But the series itself, I feel like it told the stories it needed to tell. Some of them that were a little darker and sadder, like probably that's the hardest episodes to watch, are the nightmare ones. Just because it is darker and a lot of people can relate to bullying and things like that. But overall, it did so well.
Yeah, it visually does things that just no other anime really attempts.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for something unique in those terms, without it being like, I'm not a fan of like rotoscoping and that sort of stuff. So this just does unique things with visuals and with anime in terms of just the hand-drawn art of it all.
Yeah. And it's so simplistic, you're almost mad at yourself for not having thought of, like, made it yourself. It sounds so dumb, but, like, seriously, when you think of Mob's design, it's so simple. Yeah. And a lot of why the confusion happens during the series about religion.
And then another great thing that they do is that far be it for me to judge anyone, but I think if you don't like Mob, you're weird. But if you're not a fan of that style of character, they have a lot of other characters who are just not even the complete opposite. They're just different from Mob, and they are just as important, kind of, in the series. You've got,
kind of.
like his brother is not as naive. He's not as nice about things. Sometimes
he looks out for his other brother, his older brother.
But then you have his I forget his name, the blonde one.
Yeah.
Who he's a little more playful and kind of takes more joy in having his powers, but at the same point, like, it has been influenced by Mob to be less of a jerk.
Right.
And then you have these other characters who have been using their powers as a way to, like, escape from bad things happening in their life. And then there are just some that are megalomaniacs who they just want power and they want to control everyone, and that's their whole thing.
Yeah, the blonde he was referring to is Hanazawa.
Yes.
But one of the characters I really like who they brought in, because I was like, oh my god, this is going to be OP, I'm going to hate this character, I'm going to hate how it's going to be used. But I loved it, the fact that we had, like, the teleporter, and the fact that he, like, fucked with people so much. I was like, there's no way anyone's going to take him down, and this is going to be, like, the downfall. But then they realized how his ability worked, and they just fucked him up, and I'm like, yes, that's so satisfying.
Yeah. And I mean, that is... It's going to be an issue at some point as they move forward, is that the escalation of powers. By the end of the second season, we're talking like they're like throwing buildings at each other. And that's nothing compared to some power creep in some anime, but it's like, at what point are they going to stop?
Right.
Yeah, and so that's a little bit of my worry, is that the power creep might get even crazier.
But even if, like, honest to God, if from now on they did nothing regarding his powers and just had, like, these stories with all the characters, I would be totally okay with that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it never brought it up again, other than the fact of, like, exercising these ghosts. Otherwise, like, even the OVA, I love it so much, because it's like he did absolutely nothing the entire OVA, and it was just a story about Reagan, and it was so funny.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it was so well done. It was such a classic that we've seen before, but it was done so well.
Oh, Reagan.
I love Reagan.
There's a reason why the anime just continues to gain this groundswell of support, and it seems to be bringing in another, like, there are these anime that, regardless of what you think of their actual how good they are, just bring in people who normally don't watch
Yeah.
anime.
Or
And
even
Mob
like
is one
this.
of those things. One Punch Man did it. Attack on Titan did it. And I feel like Mob, especially after the second season of One Punch Man, for some people it didn't deliver. A lot of people instead moved over to Mob Psycho and were like, oh my god, this is, what I was looking for. And
I can
whatever
honestly
gets
say,
more people into watching anime, the better.
Because it was one of those things where I can even admit, where like, I didn't watch it the time of airing the first season.
Yeah.
And it was like one of those things where I looked at it and I was like, I'm not a fan of the art, I'm kind of, But everybody was like, dude, you have to watch it. And I was like, there's another season coming out. I should watch it. I'll watch it. So I like binged it all in one day, I think. Maybe two max. And I was like, fuck, that was good. Jeff, you should watch it. He's like, and I was like, no, dude, you have to watch.
Yeah.
And I was one of those people, because as soon as I watched it, I was like, fuck, that was good.
Mm-hmm.
And it
was good.
One of those
and
things.
It is good. And the second season, I could say, like, without... I don't know many people who would look at the second season versus the first and not think the second season was better.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question.
I just love that Jeff had a good laugh by the end of the first season with all Reagan, but you'll know what I mean when you watch it. I don't want to spoil it, but it was super funny. So yeah, I think that's all that needs to be said. It's great, and you should watch it. And I'll warn you, though, some of you who have seizures, there are some flashing lights in it.
Photosensitivity.
I'd be very careful. Just give yourself an episode or two, like have somebody else watch it and see how it goes. Just to give you that warning, because I know definitely watching it definitely gave me the odd headache, but I pushed through because I really like the show. So, let's move on, though. So, we're finally into the top 3 category. So, let's get into 3. It's Dororo. So fucking good.
This was what I was alluding to with the idea earlier. We were talking about Fruits Basket, and I said that Fruits Basket took stuff that was older and didn't really innovate in any particular way, whereas this is from the 60s.
God, I think it was the
late
60s.
50s,
I'll double
early
check.
60s.
Yeah,
and just it feels so 2019. It felt just like I would understand if people watched it and had no idea that it was derived from something that old. It's made by the same guy who wrote Astro Boy.
Yeah.
This show was made by
the
same
original
guy who did
TV
Astro
series
Boy.
aired in 1969.
Yeah.
So I never watched the original. I've just seen kind of snippets. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change the fact that it's awesome. The only thing I can say is its downfall, pointed out right away. Sometimes it didn't know, it wanted to kind of be the monster of the week to kind of get through its story, but it finally committed to doing the full story and going on its directed line rather than kind of being like these side stories, side characters, whatever. That's its only downfall, quite honestly.
And even then, like, it's not even really necessarily a downfall. We
get some development in some form, but it's just not like a nice through. I'm trying to say the word
throughway.
Yeah, basically.
Because it does its narrative and its storytelling and like its interactions with people so well. Just them fighting off demons. You're kind of like, that was awesome, but I actually like it when they incorporate more human elements to it even more.
Yeah. It's like it's inevitable not to get like side stories because that's what happens from time to time. But that's its really only downfall. The art was amazing. The music was amazing. The opener was amazing. Give it a look. Even if you don't watch it, just look at the opener.
Fight choreography is just brilliant.
Stellar.
I don't understand how you do fight choreography for, and again, like, this is, it's in the idea of the story, but he literally has swords for arms.
Yeah.
Like, and the fight choreography that happens for it, obviously they took some inspiration from samurai type stuff, but it's just, it never once seems awkward, it never once is like, you just kind of almost forget about it after a while. It just looks so second nature.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because, he's been using these for years and years. So it is going to be second nature for Hyakkimaru, which another great thing about it is not naming the anime after the main character.
Yeah.
I love it. It's not. It's named after the person who's going to tell his story.
Yeah.
Oh, and just everything about it. There's
it's not afraid to go for the jugular either.
Oh,
it was super sad in a lot of episodes.
And it shows you what. And there is. I think there's a lot of inspiration from. I don't know if it's. It's from some religious. Ideology.
Buddhism.
Yeah, there's some Buddhist sort of teachings that are kind of the linchpin of some of the character development, but it shows you what...
Of, like, basically the sense of what makes you whole, of, like, your body, of, like, you interacting with other things, and it basically of, like... excuse me. It goes about, like, goes through the story of basically explaining... I'm sure we told you and you know about it, but long story short... the king at the beginning of the show sacrifices his child for having peace among the land, and
not peace. He wants
not peace,
power.
Prosperity and power. Yeah,
he wants power.
So,
yes.
Anyways, and then as time goes on, obviously he tries to kill his child, but then somebody rescues it. Long story short. So, anyways, not spoiling it. Basically, happens in the first episode. Anyways, so as time goes on, obviously he's pissed off that this has happened to him, and he really badly wants his body parts back. But it's said many times to several people where it's like, can't you just be happy with how things are? Like, I know it's owed to you, I know they belong to you, but the more you go on, the more you taint your soul because you're just becoming a worse person. And it's like, can't you just be happy with what you have?
And
it's totally understandable because the whole time, like Jeff and I were talking, I was like, I can understand he's super fucking bitter because I was like, I'm blind, I have no sensation, I have fucking knives for arms. Like I said, I would be bitter too. Where it's like, I want them back, they're mine.
And that's what he said. Like, at one point, Hakumaru is just like, why is it wrong for me to want what is mine?
Yeah, and I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, and it isn't an issue of like. I'm owed something that isn't mine. Yeah. It is his body.
Literal body parts.
That's the only thing that he has ever wanted. That's the only thing he is in want of, is like, you know what? I've had to, and that's the thing, is like, you pity the fact that he had to live for
so long.
Decades. Well, I guess he's maybe, 15,
I was about to say, he's
16?
probably a teenager, yeah.
Yeah, and like, he's had to live that entire time without sight, without hearing, without the ability to touch anything. Like, he is basically almost like built into like a doll.
Yeah.
And at one point when he does gain the ability to speak, he's just like, why is it like, it's mine. Yeah. It's my body.
Yeah.
But it brings it up a whole bunch of other moral quandaries.
Yeah.
As like, it comes to the fact of, you taking your body back means that this area of the world, like, they will lose their prosperity. Yeah. They, like, so many bad things are going to happen to so many people.
Yeah.
And he's
it's
just
like, is that fair? It's just like, well, none of it's fair, but it's mine.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, none of this is fair. Nothing about that at all is fair. Yeah. And the relationship that he ends up developing with his brother and his mother is...
And like
heartbreaking
his, like,
and
surrogate
wonderful.
Dad.
Yeah, surrogate father. It is such a human story, which is very weird for somebody who basically has no human parts fighting what is essentially a bunch of demons.
Well, but he does have human parts, like they said, they're just missing skin, sensation, all this stuff. Like his body is human; it's just missing a lot.
I would say his soul is human, and he has a husk that eventually he kind of gains back. But like, beyond all of that, and beyond all of the relationships, and beyond it is wonderfully cast, so many amazing performances,
voice acting, yeah,
all of that. The music is beautiful. Like, on a technical level, it is brilliant.
Yeah.
But beyond all of that, it also has fight choreography and fights that rival the best shonen.
And it also, again, is that borderline historical, where it's going over some things that were, like, did happen, where it's like, yeah, was that gruesome? Yeah, they slaughtered a lot of people. Yeah, they burned down their houses. Like, that's all accurate. Yeah. Like, that's not totally inaccurate.
And then the counterpoint to this kind of calm, like Hyakkimaru, our main character, is for the most part quite calm and quite reserved. For a long time doesn't have the ability even to speak, so you just kind of understand their
and to have that just portrayed how he feels without words, without using hands, without like anything. You can't touch. You like, so you're portraying it with like writing things in the sand, behaviors, motion. Like, it's so well thought out.
Then
like, okay, we have nothing. What do we do? Like,
counter that with the character of Dororo, who is somewhat bombastic and is a talker and is a bit of a scamp and a scoundrel and has had to basically fight their entire life to have anything. To have these two pair up, where Dororo's like, I'll be your mouthpiece, you know, and like, we are brothers. That is our relationship, and it is portrayed so well because as like Dororo at the start is like no, like let's go after all of these demons.
Yeah.
Let's go after all of them. You deserve this. But seeing what it's doing to Hyakkimaru, even Dororo is like, I want him to stop.
Yeah, we should
I
stop
want him
now.
to know, like, it's turning him more almost like into a demon to do this.
Yeah, and we see
it
that
has
a lot.
Great visual, there's a great visual element to that where there's another character who is also blind, but it's like, oh no, Hyakkimaru sees what is inside. He sees the aura. So like, demonic people or people who have done bad things or just plain like demons are for the most part red, meaning that they have like a demonic element to them. And then human beings will kind of flirt between like
good, bad, evil,
like reds and oranges, and then
purples,
blues and greens when they're calm and whatnot. And so you kind of start to see Hyakkimaru, like you get to see these elements from Hyakkimaru's perspective.
Then we also see from the blind guy, who is also there, and he's seeing him. And so when he does some bad things, you see his aura like change for a little bit, then kind of go linger back.
Specks of red.
Yeah, and he's just like, do you know what you're doing?
Yeah, like at the start of the series, Hyakkimaru will never kill something that he views as blue. So he's like, no, like, I'm not, and he's very much against killing humans, basically. Like, his whole thing is like, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna kill demons. Demons deserve to die. They are a red aura, they prey on the weak, they prey on everybody.
But then, like, we even have an incident where it's like, you see that the people that were seen as okay still caused a great amount of harm to someone he cared deeply for, and it makes him go berserk. Where it's just like, I thought the demons were the problem, but actually people are just as bad sometimes. Then we realize that, like, your morals are kind of flirting again, because it's like, you were just doing demons, now you're doing people. And yes, they're bad people, but it's still people. And so...
Yeah. And also, this world, yes, obviously, Hyakkimaru's father, like, he wished for power and, like, the ability to make his lands prosperous. But that doesn't, like, the outskirts of his territories are still very dangerous. There's the remnants of war, and so these people who he's used to seeing, red and blue. He's used to seeing, oh, okay, they're just regular nice people, and red is bad people. But now it's like, what about samurai who have been ordered to murder people by a former lord? And there's, like, flecks of red in there where they're like, are they bad people for having sworn fealty to somebody? So and they told them to kill these people. Like,
so you see, like, moments where he has to think about it, and then he decides to, like, bide his time to see how the aura levels out. Whereas other times, if he's in a rage, he'll just take them out, which is, understandable when you can't see.
Yes.
You kind of just go with your gut feeling, which is the senses of auras.
Yeah.
It's really good. I can't say the shark episode enough was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, but it is equal parts weird, bombastic, let's murder weird demon creatures, as much as it is like deep philosophical, like hard hitting questions about what it is to be human, what is mercy.
Yeah, and wartime.
And wartime. Like, it is so good. And again, this is another one where I feel like not a whole lot of people watched it. And I mean, there's some people who I didn't know this was a thing, but I told a friend of mine online, like, this is great. And then the second, like, I showed a GIF from it, and the second that he pulled off, like,
his arm.
He has an arm that is a scabbard,
prosthetic,
right?
Yeah.
And he pulls it off, and he's like, that almost made me vomit. He's like, that's a weird thing that just, it triggers me. And I was like, oh.
I never thought of it that way until he said it.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I can understand that being something that would make you kind of feel ill. I can get that, like, you know, you're basically...
But to me, it's so badass. It's like, just pull off a prosthetic. It's like, nice! I was like, yeah!
So I was just like, oh, okay. And so I can understand why might not be for everyone.
So, yeah.
If that kind of stuff
I would say
makes
more than Vinland Saga, this is more Berserk. In the sense of it being, like, a little gorier, a little darker, a little, like, holy crap.
And boy, when Hyakumaru does just, like, you know, he kills a demon and gets a body part back, it isn't just like, oh, hey, I now have my legs. I 100% know exactly how to use them, and like, it's perfectly fine.
I love that they don't just like make it magic where it's like, you can use it now. Or like probably my favorite episode regarding the senses is the one where they're like out in the rain and he gets his hearing back, and it's like a tormented, like, if you hear it for the first time, it's horrible. It's like, it's just fucking noise everywhere.
Yeah. And another great thing about it, which you and I both fell into it, is like, we know, like, okay, like, he kills a demon, what's he gonna get back? Like, how is that gonna change him? Is this going to be like a good thing, or is it going to be detrimental? Because like, for a long time he doesn't have the ability to feel pain because he doesn't have skin.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't have pain receptors that way. Yeah. So then when he gains some of that back, he's felt
in agony.
Yeah, he's never felt pain before.
Yeah. Imagine that. Yeah.
It's all so well done. There's a reason it's our number 3. It is so good, and it started off right at the start of the year. And so, if you're interested at all, it is complete. It's all just ready to watch.
Yeah,
go for it.
Definitely watch it. Very good. Let's move on. So Jeff hinted at it before when we were talking about ratings. But always the bridesmaid, never the bride. My Hero Academia Season 4. And I know you're going to say, just like some of the other ones, it's not finished, but it's been very good so far, and I read the manga, and I know it's going to end really fucking strong.
I mean, just in what they've shown so far, it's been excellent. I can't.
It's been so
good. I can't
good.
point to a single thing that's.
I was so angry when IGN came out and that one like guy who was writing was like, "Oh, I guess this is filler." I was like, "I guess it's filler if you've never read the manga or care about character development or anything like that." It's like, what the fuck do you call filler then? I was like, "What the fuck?"
That whole moment was about him like questioning everything that he's done in his life. And
I love Kirishima.
When you're put into a stressful situation where you're like, "I thought I could handle this." That's what you do. You think back to like all these things that you think you've done to try and prepare.
Yeah.
And it's everything about season 4 of My Hero Academia is just
so good
to move the needle. Like, it's, again, character development has been wonderful. Seeing like
art great, music great, voice great, everything great. Like
and I love the fact that people are now getting to see Lemillion, and the fact that he is...
It's like a sigh of relief.
He's a mirror to Deku, and both of them were, like, just horrified and deeply, deeply saddened by what they had to do at that time, but they're both like, we're here, like, this is so... It's so counter to every natural instinct that I have in my body. And then that one pro hero just gives him shit for it. He's like, well, we wouldn't even be having to do this if they would have just done something. It's like, they're both kids. They're both... And
it's like, chill the fuck out.
And even tonight I was like, oh yeah, no, they were just following my instructions. You have a problem with that, talk to me.
Yeah.
And it is... One of the things that I love the most about My Hero Academia, beyond the fact that, yes, we have obviously amazing fight choreography and powers, and we've got a bunch of different characters that we're following, and they do it better than Naruto did, where everybody is getting their moments, and everybody is still useful, and that sort of thing. Naruto had that problem where a bunch of them became useless later. And we haven't come anywhere close to that issue right now.
You better have a fucking Rasengan or fucking
the thing that I love that it's doing such a good job of in the 4th season so far is showing that like the hero society, the hero league, whatever you want to call it,
the League of Villains.
No, not the League of Villains.
Oh.
The heroes, they are splintered and they have no idea what to do without All Might. So some of them they're like, let's work together. Like, we have to come together in order to make up for the fact of what All Might could do on his own. And so many of them are like, no, like, I don't want to work with you guys. I think what you're doing is wrong. Let me just go out and do my own thing. And so you're already now starting to see some of the pieces kind of crack a little bit. The heroes are outright arguing with each other at these meetings and like, that's a stupid thing. Why are we waiting for this? Why aren't we just going in there? And I was like, none of you are All Might. Stop pretending that you are, or that you're anywhere close to that.
We need so many more people, yeah.
Yeah, like, and so seeing kind of everything start to fracture a little bit in this kind of facade of what, because that's the thing, the hero society or whatever, I forget what the technical term is that they use, is broken without All Might. And
of course,
we're
they had
starting
a pillar.
to see that happen already.
Yeah.
Oh, and
it's just so good because it does a lot of character development. Like, it was like a sigh of relief when like you guys finally got to see the 3rd season, because I was like, Bakugo's a good boy. You have to believe me. And finally got that moment where a lot of you have become like big fans of Bakugo, which I'm super happy about because he deserves some love. He's a bad boy at times, but he's a good boy.
And the thing is, like, he is a much more well thought out, well intentioned character to somebody like Sasuke. Where Sasuke was kind of, in a
gloomy.
lot of ways, like, he was kind of edgy for edge's sake, and his mentality didn't make any sense, and his background, sure, it was tragic and whatnot, but it didn't really make sense for where his character eventually went. Where Bakugo and like all of these characters, it just makes sense where they are right now and how they view things, and it's done an excellent job of showing what the world that exists there and what All Might meant to all of it. And I love the fact that they're not shying away from that. And it's the same thing in like DC Comics. Sometimes when they're writing it, they do a very good job of showing just what Superman means to everything else, because he's fucking Superman. Like, and that was All Might. He is All Might. He is number one. It's not even close. He basically made it so that crime didn't even have a chance for like decades. Yeah. And now we're seeing what happens when he isn't there anymore.
Yeah, like, I love Horikoshi's writing. I love everything about it, because it shows just, like, this is the first time fans get to see, like, Fat Gum, and they love him. Oh, yeah. Like, he is so likable. He's such a well-designed character.
Who are you?
And it's so, like, it just works with him, and it's, like, everybody just works, and of course, everyone was happy to see Toga again. I love Toga, especially with the later chapters. I'm not going to get into it. The season's been great so far, and I know it'll end really well because I've read the whole manga up until, well, where it is presently, and I know where it's going to end. It's going to be great. It's going to be great fight scenes. It's going to be a tearjerker. It's going to be...
It's not even about, like, it's going to be. It's been that already. That's why it's shown. This high.
It has receipts. And, just from Horikoshi, from his writing to seeing, obviously, like we said, the receipts, we've seen it, and it's been exactly what the manga is, and that's what it's always delivered, is exactly what the manga had, except for the first episode is always like a filler / but it was very appeasing, the one they had for the season. Like, I liked the whole concept. It wasn't in the manga, the guy who had many cameras on him, but it was a wonderfully told story. It was simple, it was neat, I liked it, and it spoke a lot of sense to, like, the fact that no one can be, like, totally oblivious to the fact that, like, obviously he meant something where it's like, you're next. It had to mean something. One of the kids has to be, like, somebody had to have thought of that, and I'm glad they addressed it. Because it can't be like, he's the only person and Bakugo who noticed. There's no way. So that's great that they kind of made a nod towards it.
And Overhaul is an absolutely amazing villain, and they've done
You haven't even seen how
job.
cool he is.
But they've done a wonderful job with him so far.
I know, but you haven't seen the capacity of like, blam.
Well, I mean, obviously, but even at this point now, like we know what his quirk is, and it is horrifying when you think about how it could be used in practice.
Right.
And he is, again, My Hero Academia always with their main villains has something intriguing, something unique about them.
I love the Plague Doctor look.
Forward. Yeah, the Plague Doctor look is great. I love that, like, his whole, like, the reason why he's doing what he's doing, it makes total sense. And, you know, he is, compared to Shigaraki, he's very calm. He's very collected. He's like, he's like, you know, it's a chess match, and he's like, I lost some pieces, you lost some pieces. You need to exchange stuff with me in order for us to work together. And it's so good.
Something I'll point out now, because I thought it was a really great idea when I read it in the manga, but I just thought of it now that we're here again. Something I absolutely love about this arc and about these chapters, about the whole shebang, is the fact that they're getting into the fact that there's a world outside of where they're living that has to do with crime as well. The fact they're talking about drugs, illegal trafficking, everything like that. And then the other thing I absolutely love, because this is a huge thing that with all gangs, not just with My Hero Academia, when they're talking about like, with Overhaul, it's like all these people are willing to like just die for him, and like why? It's like because he found value in us. He found the weakness in these people, and it was like, okay, they need somebody to believe in them. That will give them the courage to stand up for me, and basically kill themselves. He basically feeds on the weak so that he gets what he wants. And that's everybody you run into, and they say it multiple times so you get the point across, where it's like, why are you doing this for this low life? And it's like, he was the only one who saw value in my quirk. He's the only person who saw value in me. He's the only person who gave me a chance. And I love that, because it's very indicative of gang mentality, of the fact of these people had nothing left, so this is what it resulted in. Like, they couldn't find a job, they couldn't get money, they couldn't find housing, they couldn't find any of these things. So they were given, like, drugs to boost their powers. They were given, like, a place to stay. They were given this free will, like we see with our fighting villain, where it's like, okay, go nuts, beat the shit out of people. As long as you do it for me, go nuts. So that's what he does. He just beats the shit out of them. And, like, yeah, he has, like, feelings of his own. Like, you can see there, he's like, I just love that, where it's like, is he better? It's like, no, of course he's not better. He needs bandages and help. But it's just like with Kirishima, it's like, is he fine now? It's like, no. But I like that, where it's just the fact of, like, I get what's happening. I'm not an overly bad person. This is just my situation. And that's where I found myself. And I love that it points at that. It's not just the fact of, like, oh, this is just a storyline to get from A to B. It's the fact that it is actually looking at gangs, drugs, mentalities, everything like that.
And it works really well, again, in the world building, where you have to reflect a world that had All Might in it, where they were like, yeah, we were pushed into the darkness. We couldn't do anything. Like, we're a gang. We're not even, like, super villains.
Yeah.
We're nothing. We were so nothing that we basically hid under the fact that we were barely doing anything.
And I love that
All Might didn't even come after us because we were so low key, and yet that pisses them off, because they were like, we're the Yakuza. We were a big goddamn deal before all of this happened. Before All Might was a thing.
Yeah, we were
a thing.
It's like we couldn't compete because we didn't have quirks, and then it goes like, I think it's very poignant. Like, when I read it, I thought it was very, very well done. The moment where we have our bad guy with Kirishima, and he said, like, look at my arms, they're basically box cutters, not even that. And it's just like, they're useless, my quirk is useless. And I love that it's commenting on the world there. It says, like, oh, most of these people have quirks, but it doesn't mean that they're any good ones. Like we saw with even Deku's mom, where she can make things kind of levitate a little bit, but nothing serious, nothing worthwhile.
Yeah, and there's like people who's like, oh, I can make little fountains with my hands.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck good is that?
Every single story that they've told,
in the sense of, like, hero work.
Every single story that they've told so far within this world is building on the idea of, like, well, some people just get lucky with the quirks, some don't. Not
everybody's Bakugo.
Yeah, one of the most interesting characters is somebody who openly says, or people are like, wow, looks like you're more suited to be a villain.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I love that commentary because it's just like like he said himself. This was in the last season where we have I can't remember his name for the life of me. He basically mind screws you. Yeah, where it's just like he's just like I wanted to be good. That's all I wanted to be. And then everyone's like, oh, I can see how that could be used for a villain. It wasn't used for good. It wasn't used to assist heroes. It's like, oh, that's definitely a villain quirk. And it's just like, was that my future? Like, is that was all in the cards for me, is being a villain? And it's just like, I love that commentary because it's very much like, you don't even get a choice. It's very much society pushing you into that. Where it's just like, it's like the saying where you didn't feel like you had an option because that's where everyone pushed you into, where you get stereotypical placements like that. It's just...
I mean, take a look at like, half of Overhaul's ability. How is that ever going to be useful to actually helping Annie's blood?
It could be. Like he said himself, where they said with the villains are like, oh shit, he made them explode, but then he redid them, like, and then he made them without wounds. Where it's like, it could have been used for good, but he leaned totally into evil.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously you can see what he can do for evil.
Or, Shigaraki. You kind of have to find a huge stretch in order for his powers to be
his thing is
of
decay.
extreme, benefit to
and it's hard.
anyone,
Yeah.
And so it's...
I mean, it could be, but against villains, right? Instead of using against heroes.
But I mean, again, the heroes are not supposed to be...
I know, they're not supposed to be hurting anybody, but I mean...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of that Endeavor cares about, but that's the thing, too.
Endeavor has other standards.
I have box cutters for hands. Like, how are you...
Well, not for hands, through his body.
How are you safely using that to stop villains? You're probably not. Yeah. I'm going to cut you until you've decided you've had enough damage.
That give you a lot of damage.
A lot of damage. And the fourth season just has done a great job of expanding our mindset of like what the world... It's done a great job of showing what the world is like without All Might. And how much pressure that puts everybody else under. And also, like, Sir Night-Eye has been amazing so far. He's been just a revelation in terms of storytelling and getting some backstory on All Might and what his quirk is and everything.
And I love that seeing the future where it's just like, you're going to die a horrific death. And everybody's like, on the message boards now, it's like, oh my god, what does that mean? But it's so good.
He loves All Might so much. He was like...
Where he's like, I was a fan.
Yeah, I can't support you anymore if you're not going to do something to try and change your fate. And
he's like, we can go about a different route.
He's like, your fate is never... You've never been wrong, so why am I going to try and fight this? And he's like, just because it hasn't been wrong yet doesn't mean that it can't be wrong. We just haven't tried hard enough yet. And just... It's just... This season in particular is awesome. Lemillion is a great character, and I love the fact that you're going to be able to see more of him and his character and how his quirk works and everything like that. And, getting into this whole idea... Because right around this time, I was thinking, like, well, some people, they've probably got quirks that if you just ratchet them up, they'd be great. And then
now we see
he's like, oh yeah, definitely so.
Definitely.
Like, you just drug yourself up, and all of a sudden your powers are, exponentially stronger.
Exactly.
And season 4 is very good.
Give it a watch. Actually, watch all the other seasons, then go to 4. So, let's move on. And last, but definitely not least, is Promised Neverland. It was so good. I can't think of anything wrong with it, quite honestly. That's why it's number 1 for both of us. We both rated it. We talked about it. Cannot find a thing wrong with it. Yeah, by the way, before we get going, read the manga. Very good. Okay.
I am not reading the manga because
I've read it and went ahead.
As I've stated in other podcasts and whatnot, I think there is some benefit to some, especially if you've got 2 people who are doing it. It's nice to have somebody who is going in fresh.
I get it, but it's like there's certain things, like, especially when I first watched My Hero Academia, I knew it was something.
Yeah.
It's the same with this. As soon as I finished watching it, I was like, no, I can't not watch it. It was the same with Main Abyss. As soon as it stopped, I was like, I'm just gonna, like, right now.
And so
it's just like, I could not stop.
I make the decision not to.
I broke you on My Hero Academia.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck, you should see this.
Yeah. And I mean, that's fine. But the other ones, I made the decision after you started to read it. I was like, okay, I won't. And we'll have that point of view.
Yeah.
Which went all the way back to when I wanted you to watch the live-action Hollywood version of Ghost in the Shell before you then watch the animated one. Because I was like, I really want you to watch that one first.
I just love it. I was like watching it. I was like, okay, it was okay. And then as soon as I was just
it
like,
was better than okay. You were like, oh, that's pretty good. Like, why do people hate it?
Yeah,
and then,
I was just like, I don't know why people hate it. Then I watched the other one, and my smile right away went away. I
You're
was like, why would they fucking do that? It was so much
better.
I was like, fuck, the original was so much better.
We'll see what happens with Promised Neverland and the Abyss. But
Promised Neverland has apparently a live action. I haven't watched it though. Very good. Animation, good. Suspense, good. Music, good. Characters, good. Everything, good. Like, I can't think of, honest to God, one thing they did wrong. Like, the suspense, they did better than most suspense anime.
Oh, yeah.
The story writing was great. The creatures were great. The character design was great. Everything was great. I can't say a bad thing about it. Mm-hmm. For any of you who don't know, we've said it before, Promised Neverland is about these children who are in, like, this orphanage, and they're under the assumption that when they hit a certain age, they're allowed to go out and they have a family. And twist, it's something happens when they leave the gates, and you find out what happens, that there are creatures on the other side of the gates, and you'll find out what happens with that.
That reveal is one of the most shocking and horrific things, and like the way the characters react to that is
perfect.
It's exactly what you would expect, because they are rightfully horrified, they're terrified, but they're also like we have to try to remain as calm as we can, and they're literally like shaking, and they're like, they're both looking at each other like, how, what, everything. They question their entire existence, and yet they're just like, everything in our bodies wants to scream and yell and cry out, and they just can't, and you feel that.
And it might seem so far-fetched, and on paper it does, but when you see it play out, it plays out so well. And I love that the world is created, like, our world is this orphanage, and yet they do it so well where they show the daily routine. They show the fact that these kids are insanely smart. They show the fact that, like, they're dynamic with Mom, who is, like, the person running the orphanage.
The antagonist, for lack of a better term.
And so we kind of see the dynamic there and what they have to do, and basically everything about it's just so well done. I don't want to say a ton because it'll spoil everything, but... And
then we have a second antagonist that gets brought into the mix, and the way that resolves is just brilliant.
So good.
Oh, man. I forgot about that for a second, and then I was like... Oh, that part is so good. Every episode is just wonderfully crafted to have its own suspenseful kind of arc to it, but also continue to kind of build along with everything that's happening. It all makes sense for the world that they are building. The kids are very intelligent, but not like in a insulting way. They're not like so intelligent that they are like super geniuses. They are very smart for their age.
They're intelligent.
They understand like what they know and what they don't know.
It's not all the kids too. So it's they go through and they do testing, and you find out why. But you see that,
and the reasons why like they're smart makes sense, and all like everything about that first season was just so well crafted. We watched the sub. I don't recall even watching.
We did watch a little bit of the dub, I think.
The voices were okay, but I mean,
I wasn't totally stoked on the voices. I was like, go back to the sub.
And so we watched the sub, and like the people they had doing the voice acting just
killed it.
They sold it. They sold everything there. the music was perfectly timed and perfectly done.
The suspense alone, if you could do like a whole fucking university class on what it did right, my God.
It
so
seemed to take a lot of elements from something like...
horror movies?
Not even like horror movies necessarily. Certainly a little bit of that. But I was thinking more like... God, why can I not think of
Help me out here.
Red Rum.
Oh, Shining.
The Shining. Like, the way in which they would build tension by just moving through...
rooms.
The area that they live in.
Yeah.
Promised Neverland does this same thing, and it provides more tension than even, like, the creature designs do.
Yeah, because it's like, whose point of view am I going through? Because it's like, it just shifts and it shows them going through it. I was like, is this a bad person's point of view? Is it a good person? What are we doing? Mm-hmm. And then, like, there's a point in there as well where somebody pulls, like, a twist on somebody else, and then it totally lays it up where it's like, well, obviously it's blank. And I'm like,
yeah. There's this great mystery element, like the world itself is a mystery. A mom is a mystery. This other person that they bring in later, they're a mystery. And all of these elements just work exceptionally well around each other. And of course, you viewing it a little bit from the outside in, you are also bringing in preconceived notions into it all, where you're like, well, you know, are they doing this because they want to? Are people being forced into doing this? And they sort of answer some of that, but some of it they're just leaving because that's not part of the narrative right now.
There will be more seasons.
Yeah, and you're just kind of left to be, at least for me, because I didn't read it, Sugar. I'm left to just be like Sugar just loves the fact she'll just randomly like every 3 weeks she'll be like, so have you had any other ideas of what you think will happen next?
After I read something, because some things like I like looking from different points of view. So like there's times where I'm like, when I went into it, I thought blank would happen, and then it's like either it did happen or it went totally in another direction. So I'm like, what did you think would happen next? It's like, what did you think the same thing I did? And so I like doing that with Jeff, where I'm like, I'll read a bit on something. It's like, what do you think will happen?
Yeah. And then
I never tell him what happens. I never want to ruin it.
And I have this problem where, like, I will come up with, like, a dozen different scenarios.
Yeah. He'll come up with, like, different, like, a dozen, then he'll narrow it down, usually to 3, where it's like, these are the 3 most likely. And I'm like, interesting. And I'll leave.
It was the same thing with Vinland Saga, and I came up with... Because
somebody spoiled it for me, what happened at the end. I won't say what. And so I said to Jeff, I was like, what do you think will happen?
And I came up with, like
viable
you said,
options.
Probably about 4 or 5 things that I'm like, these are plausible. And then I came up with the ones where I was like, I'm pretty sure it's one of, like, these 3.
Yeah, these are the 3 main things I can see happening. I was like, okay, now walk out.
And Sugar will also sometimes be like, do you just want spoilers? I'm like, nope. No, I'm good.
Or else I'll be, like, sitting on the couch reading. I'm like, oh, fuck, I should tell you about this. He's like, no. I was like...
There's a couple of times Sugar has had to catch herself where she'll be like, and then...
Because... Well, it's always the fact that we, like, usually do everything together. So I just assume that we're watching the same thing. I was like, oh my god, in the last chapter, and I'll see this blank look on his face. I was like, nothing. And I walk out. I was like, oh my god, could you get over that?
Happened.
I was just like, can you get over that? Nothing. Nothing happened.
So, I would suggest to everybody to try Promised Neverland.
1 season so far.
Yeah,
you can do it.
And yeah, I think the only thing I can say is if you find it difficult to see young people in peril, this might be tough at times.
Yes, there is 1 death. So I can say, well, yeah, 1 death. That's definitely shown. So if you have a problem with like Made in Abyss sort of things where you can't see bad things happen to little kids, understandable, might not be for you. But great story.
Yeah, and we're not the only ones who think that. It's rated very highly on MAL.
It's so good.
It was like this was the year where people were like, all of these major Shonen Jump anime are all coming at the same time.
Yeah.
We had The Promised Neverland, and we have Dr. Stone coming, and then like Vinland Saga, which people were like, this is an epic, this is just amazing, and So, and Fire Force. So, like, we had a bunch of different
And I heard
things.
nothing but good things about Promised Neverland, so I was really worried because I was like, oh, there's so much hype around Dr. Stone that I ended up being, like, bitter about it. Same with Vinland Saga, and I hate when that happens because that kind of crunches on my vibes. So I'm, like, trying not to. So I was like,
It also helped this was right at the start of the year.
So I tried to, like, purposefully not read or look or do anything. And I was like, I just want to watch it. I don't want to even know what it's about. I just saw the poster with 3 kids on it, and I'm like, okay, let's rock and roll.
Yeah. 3 kids and lots of people being like, oh my god, this is great. It's like, alright, we'll give that a shot.
So good.
It's our number 1 of the year.
Number 1!
And we'll be doing a recording later, and maybe we'll talk about it again when we talk about the best 10 of the decade.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. We're following that trend. We'll do the top 10 anime of the decade, and we'll get people who hate us.
We'll get people who hate us.
Because there's going to be legitimate, amazing anime that don't even make the top 10. There's going to be stuff that we probably have maybe given, like, 9.5.
Trust me, we've had chats already where we're like, does it make it? Blah, 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 blah.
And heck, we've looked back on some of our lists and we're like, okay, well, we were probably wrong about that. So, you know.
Yeah,
like,
Karakuri Circus, that was a big, oh, God.
Oh, the other one would be, we maybe didn't give enough to Devilman Crybaby, because that's stayed with us more than a lot of those other anime.
Very permeating. Very good.
I mean, who knows?
We did have it in our top 10, and just, we always say, was it enough?
This, overall, I felt like this year was really easy to have, like, a top 8. Like, I felt like...
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's where, honestly, we struggled. It was like, we had 7 or 8, and we're like, now what?
Yeah. Whereas, like, in previous years, we
had like, a top 3,
yeah.
and then we're like, fuck.
Yeah, here, everything kind of fell in pretty well.
Yeah.
It felt like this year, as opposed to other years, there was maybe more higher quality, but then less, like, there weren't a lot of 7s. I look back on everything that we watched over the year, and it was either, like, it seemed like it was either really good or we dropped it. Like, that was the thing.
That sounds very much like me.
It was either, like, because I think, you know, it was either, like, 8s and higher or, ugh. I can't think of a single thing that I watched that'd be like, it was like a 6. Like, I didn't.
Yeah, I can't think of any. I'm sure I did, but I can't think of anything offhand.
Yeah, it seemed like the best of the best rose very, very quickly and very, like, easy to spot.
Very fast, very free.
And then there was everything else.
And before, when I said Devilman, if it did deserve more, I meant deserve a higher rating.
Yeah.
Not in the sense of, yeah. Anyways, we're so happy you joined us. Our top 10 are done. We had our honorable mentions at the beginning. And I guess we'll wait and see. I have a couple other things to post. We have to do the podcast for the decade. And we'll see what atrocity comes with the Crunchyroll Awards. I'm more excited to see how bad it's going to be.
I think it's going to take a few years for it to really find exactly what it's trying to be. The video game awards.
But it felt like 2 years ago it was
problem.
like the closest it's ever been to being its best self.
I know. And then they, like, awards are, and like, here's the thing too, our award, like, our top 10 of the year and whatnot, not to say that it is a sham or anything like that, but
let's say what?
We try to be as objective as possible, but I mean, there is just going to be some subjectivity in there. Both of us hate Food Wars. I can't say that Food Wars is badly animated. I can't say that it has bad performances. I couldn't tell you about the music or anything. It's just...
I can tell you stories.
Yeah, the story sucks to us because we just don't care about that method of storytelling, that narrative. It just doesn't matter to us. But at the same point, I loved Iron Chef, and that was a stupid story too. Like, so there is... As much as we try to be as objective as possible, there is always going to be, especially when it comes to narrative and storytelling, there is a subjective element to that. And so, I can never really look at something like the Anime Awards, the Crunchyroll Awards, and I can't give it too much crap. I can definitely say its production last year was bad.
Sucked. The whole thing was
like,
shit. I can't think of one good thing that happened last year.
Yeah, I mean, no, the production of it was very bad. You had so many people who were either drunk
the host.
or they didn't care. There was definitely somebody there who seemed like the only purpose they had is they wanted to show off their breasts. That seemed to be the only thing they cared about.
I wonder who you're referring to.
But at the same point, like the selections and whatnot being like kind of a mix of people voting for things and then having an actual panel, like
that was like this year. They're like, oh, we're gonna change like the weight of like our polls and like our actual like judges, and I was like,
But that's the thing is that it's never going to. I don't think it's ever going to be
in an
to
award
a point
show. It shouldn't
where,
be about what the fans want. If we want a fan favorite, go to fucking Teen Choice Awards. Go to.
I mean, that's the thing though, is that they have to look at both camps where. Some people do want just something that's objective. That is like,
I want something that's objective.
Is, how many people out there can you look at and be like, they are a critic of anime that I respect? I respect Giguk.
I can think a handful of people that I would respect their thing. Like, there's certain people I don't like, but I respect that other people do like their comments. Like, I'm not going to say who because I don't want to create beef. I've already had one anime person come after me. Which was really funny, but anyway.
Yeah, I was like,
I am nobody.
We're basically nobody. We don't make any money off of
like,
this.
What the
we
fuck?
Just love anime. But that's the thing is, when it comes to, let's say, the Academy Awards or whatnot, you have people who get to vote on that are like actors and directors and people in the business and like all of these other critics who have been doing it for decades and all these people who have worked for a long time to get that sort of clout. It feels like anime, for maybe only the past decade or so, has even had that level of respect.
No, I get it, but I feel like they should take a sampling of who's available and what we can do. So I feel like they should take people, maybe some YouTubers, some people that have been around a while, take like a gambit of people, not just one specific type, get somebody who... very differing opinions, which is whatever. Get like maybe 3. Get people who write about manga, write about anime, write about it. People that are huge adamant nerds, like people. If they want to have celebrities, fine, but be huge adamant nerds. Like what's his face? I'm not saying they could ever get him, but like oh shit. The fellow from Star Wars.
John Boyega?
Yes. He's a huge anime fan. And just getting his 2 cents in there would be interesting. And we have, like, the wrestlers. Like, I'm not saying... That's not what I would want. I'm just saying to add some kind of spice to it and have some people that are involved in the production of anime who have that critical lens. Like, perfectly, if it was for me, I would just want all of that. The sense of it all being critical. I want people who write it. I want people who are the mangakas. I want people who are involved in the animation process. I want producers. I want everybody. I want people who actually know their shit about anime and say their piece and give it like it would be an official award show. I know that's not going to happen, so I would like to have a gambit of everybody, if that could be the perfect sense for everyone to be happy. Because then you have the YouTubers who share your opinions. Anybody from like Giguk, Mother's Basement, Did You Bro, anybody, like pick those. They can be different every year. Pick people who adamantly write about these things, who have deep passion for these things. People who actually know what they're fucking talking about in the sense of like I said, producers, screenwriters, story writers, anything that relate to anime, that know their shit, CG specialists, anybody who can comment on these animation, anything at all, like even if they didn't watch it, they just saw like these parts, they didn't watch the entire series, that were like, can judge it based on these like most acclaimed parts of the anime, where it's like, okay, what do you think about this? Like, that's like insanely hard to do, that's hard to accomplish, I like that they did this, like blah 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 blah, talking about it, not just having a bunch of people from fucking Ruby, from all these other places, like, these are my opinions. It's like, who the fuck cares what you think? No offense. Like, it's like, yeah, okay.
Thank you for listening to our opinions for the last 2 hours.
Yes, I have no right saying anything, but I am a legit fan. I've watched hundreds. You can go look at my MAL. Yeah. Hundreds of anime. I've spent the time. I've done the effort. I've done the research.
Hit 300 entries.
So proud of you.
But that also includes all the stuff I've drawn.
So that's like, like, to me, I'm assuming you listen to me because I do have some things that you like to hear, whether it being the objective part, the deeper analysis I do on some stuff, the fact that I maybe just the personality you like, I don't know. You each have your own reasons. And that's to each your own. But I'm just saying in the sense, like, that's why I said YouTubers, because they're people who have put in the time and their life, quite honestly, to doing this. I don't want people that are like, oh, I worked on this, you asked me to come in. Oh, yeah, I'm kind of a fan. I've watched 2 things. It's like, come the fuck on. Like, seriously.
I think it's
I just mean that in the sense where they brought in, like, I can think of last year when they brought in, what's-his-face from Rooster Teeth, from Ruby.
Yeah.
God, I can't. Miles.
Yeah.
And I love him to death. He's a great guy. He's funny, super good at what he does. But he had no right being there. And it made me angry that he was there. Because I was like, what the fuck are you doing there? He's like, oh, I'm
a name that they could get.
Oh, yeah, because, yeah, of course. And he's like, well, I'm kind of, like, a fan of anime. And it's like, I don't want somebody who's kind of a fan. I want, like, legit OG fans. I want people who know what the fuck they're talking about. And it's like, it's great that you're a fan. Totally get it. Lots of people watching this are first-time fans. Totally get it. But you shouldn't be judging or saying your piece then. Like, in my opinion. I'm super... We've gotten off track here. But that's just my own opinion, where I feel like if you're having a legit award show and you want to be seen as legit, step up the bar for who you're getting. Don't get some fucking dazed out bitch with her tits out. No offense, but she was terrible. The joke she made was terrible. Her tits were out, and that was the only part people focused on. I'm sorry, but it's true. I could think of a bunch of people who just do voice acting who are insanely charismatic. Todd Habercorn, I could listen to for hours, and it makes me kind of happy. He does lots of Watch Mojo now. But anyway, just his voice alone is iconic, is memorable, is entertaining in and of itself. There's something funny about his voice that I love. It's not the fact that it's bad. It's just the fact that it's like all of his characters kind of come to mind when you hear it, and you just kind of giggle to yourself. But I love Todd Habercorn. He could do it. And he could hardly try doing it, and he could do a better job. He wouldn't need a script or anything. He'd just be like, okay, this is what we're doing. And he's good at doing it. I'm not saying he would be cheap. He probably wouldn't. But, you know, I know that's something he would do. A lot of voice actors would get involved. I know we had a voice actor last year. I'm aware. But she sucks. It sucks so bad. And I could have told you that would have happened when they saw, like, when they picked the names and they had advertising. I said to Jeff, I was like, fuck, that's going to be bad. But, like, so many other people that would be good at that job. People who insanely like anime, who enjoy their job, who enjoy doing this kind of stuff, that have no problem talking to people on prompters, whatever, like Sabat, Habercorn, like tons of people you can name off. I can't think of everything. Oh my god, I love his voice. So anyways, if he did it, I'd be so fucking happy. John Michael Tatum, I love. Anyways, getting off topic.
I think it's just, it's going through some growing pains where, because at the same point, you also have to know that they aren't going to do it to, like, lose money. So they have to be making money to produce these awards anyways. And
well, they know we'll be watching. That's the thing, because we're suckers. Every year we hope it gets better, and we feed into it, because we want to know that we always want to go to award shows to see that our opinions are verified. And yes, we can get it from our community, people agree, but we want to see it recognized officially. Yes. And that's the whole point of, award shows.
Yeah. Like I said, it's still just finding its way. I'm going to amalgamate, I'm going to compare it to the Video Game Awards, which for about 4 or 5 years when they were starting were garbage.
I know, I get it.
They were not great at all. And this has only been going on for like 3 years.
No, well,
as a production, I think that they had like polls out that people would vote on for a long time. But as a production, as something that you could watch on Twitch, I think it's only been a few years now, and so it's going to take some time before they really find exactly that perfect mix of, well, we have to do this in a way that's going to make us some money, get some attention onto our stuff. They have to get advertisers involved in it and other distributors, and we have to have it be mainstream enough that like more people than just anime fans will watch, but you also have to cater to those anime fans.
Yeah, it says the first legit were held in 2017. Yeah, so I guess I just feel insanely old.
Yeah, so it's been like a couple of years. So
they've had time.
It takes some growing pains.
I know, but it just makes me angry. So the more, like, I've talked to a lot of you, speaking to the people who watch the channel or listen, is like, it just makes me angry, and it makes you angry. I know you told me. It's the fact that, like, people still feel like manga and anime aren't taken seriously. And the fact that you like them makes you, like, a nerd, whatever. And the fact that, like, when things like last year happen and they basically, like, tell other people, like, why they aren't taken seriously, it's just, like, so disheartening. And I totally get it. Because I feel like if you had anybody else watching that and they're like, well, of course it's not taken seriously, it's just this bullshit. And it's like, no, it's not. This is very serious. This is very, like, there's so much depth to anime and manga that you can't even begin to fathom unless you dip, like, your feet in, let alone your entire body. But, like, it's a lot. But it's like, lot. But it's like seeing those award shows makes a joke out of our community, and it makes me very upset and sad about it. And that's why I'm so hard on Crunchyroll about it. And so they'll never sponsor me. But I'm okay with speaking my mind.
Yeah, but the same, like, if you just put it all to fans, you have Yuri on Ice winning everything. If you put it to just...
That's why I said you can't have all fans.
But then you also can't do the way they did it. Well... it's like some of the picks that they made last year were all right. I believe they picked Made in Abyss to be their anime of the year, which was our anime of the year as well. So, I mean, if nothing else, they got that. It's going to take a little while for them to find the perfect mix. Is it... And that's the thing, is we need to find these people who we think will actually do a good job. Somebody like Gigak, who we love... freely admits, he's like, I watch a lot of bad anime. I enjoy bad anime.
You can love bad anime. I have loved bad anime. I've watched bad anime. But it's like, oh, I have. You don't know where I've been.
I don't think you've loved bad anime.
There's a couple bad anime.
Dragon Ball Super, you crapple over that. And that's not even bad anime.
That's not even bad anime. Okay. That's just bad for what it is. Anyways, not going to get into it. This is another podcast about my trashy watchings. Anywho. That's our top 10 for the season. We won't get more off track. We love that you joined us. We love that you're with us still. We see that more people have been adding to the channel, which is awesome. I'm sorry I haven't posted a lot lately. We've just been busy. We both have our 2 jobs. Then we both got really sick, like super sick. And so now we're just kind of getting back on our bearings. I'm hoping to post some more now that I have a little bit of time here off.
We did a farewell to Fairy Tale that we need to post up.
Yeah, we recorded it.
I have a script about Radiant.
Hoping I don't lose it like last time.
We're going to do our at the top 10 of the decade. And who knows, maybe there might be something else that we were talking about, like,
we have to wrap it up for the season.
What are our worst of the year that just
I can think of some pretty bad things.
Some stuff we drop just because, like, well, there's only so many hours in the day. Right. Some are just like, oh, no. Very rarely do we ever go forward with the, no.
Or else one of us does, Jeff. And you're like, let's see how bad this gets. And I'm like, no, let's just stop it now.
Sometimes you just want to watch a trash fire burn.
And don't get me wrong, like I said, I've watched trash, but it's more of a selective trash.
To be fair, March and Madchen has been absolutely hailed for how much of a trash fire it was. So, at the very least, I spent my time watching one of the worst trash fires in the history of anime.
Oh, goodness. So thank you so much for joining us. We love that you're here. We love that we get to communicate with you and have these great interactions. Again, let us know what your favorite of the year were in the comments. As well as you can see my anime list. You can catch me on Twitter from time to time. You can catch me on here. I'm usually more responsive on here. So thank you again so much. I hope you guys had a great Christmas. Or if you don't celebrate Christmas, happy holidays. And until next... Well, actually, thank you, Jeff, for joining me, as I always thank you.
You never have to thank me, because I'll always be here. Always.
Oh, Lord. So until next time, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.